Good afternoon to a bright and breezy Silverstone. I tell you what, this morning we were covered with cloud and it was absolutely freezing. Now, lunchtime has been and gone, the track is warming up, the sun is giving us some glorious rays, and we're looking forward to 3 hours of endurance special. This is, of course, British GT, and it is one of the trophy moments in the calendar. This is the Silverstone 500. It's the one that all the drivers tell you off camera they are desperate to win. Why? Well, because we're at the home of British Grand Prix, aren't we? I mean, the Silverstone track is iconic. The drivers love racing here. It's also the longest race in the British GT calendar. It's a proper endurance special by British GT standards. 3 hours, the drivers have to swap and swap and swap. And also, everyone has an awful lot of fun. Plus, there is a special trophy up for grabs here this weekend as well. As last season, the RAC Trophy started its life in 1932. And these guys, the winner here today, will get their name engraved on that trophy, which is a special piece of motorsport history. Now, we're just waiting for the grid to start filling up, and I'll start grabbing some interviews for you very shortly. But let's just remind ourselves what happened first. Last time out at Snetterton. We'll be thrown over to the commentary team very shortly, the dream team in the box. We've got Ollie Milroy and Andy McEwen for you. I can tell you, though, that the grid is just starting to heat up, and there are some drivers and a few famous faces peppering it as well. So I'll be charging around showing you them when I can. But first up, let's join the comms team.
Thank you very much, Andy. Great to be here. Really looking forward to what should be a fascinating 3 hours of racing here around the iconic Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. The sun is out. We've got a packed grid of delectable GT3 and GT4 supercar cars that are starting to make their way out now onto the grid. This one should be fun. Well, my name is Andy McEwen, and I will be one of the two voices up here in the commentary box talking you through all of the ins and outs of what should be a really intriguing 3 hours of racing. I'm delighted to be joined as well by someone who knows a thing or two about professional GT racing, because he is a professional GT racer. Ollie Milroy, great to have you here. I'm sure you're looking forward to this one as much as I am.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to it. The sun's come out now as well. It's perfect racing conditions, obviously, for this 3 hour race at Silverstone, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. This should be, it's always a highlight of the season. It's the blue ribbon event, this, in British GT. 3 hours of racing, as Andy was saying down on the grid, the longest race of the season, and with that all-important RAC trophy on offer, all of a sudden the points don't seem to matter quite so much. It's really all about winning the race. Well, what we can do, just to familiarise you all with what the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit is like, we've put together a rather special couple of onboard laps from early on in the weekend. So let's have a look at how factory Aston Martin drivers Nicky Thiem and Marco Sorensen tackled the circuit.
So let's start this little race with Nicky Thiem around the Silverstone. I'm Marco Sorensen, and we're gonna give you a fun lap here. Enjoy this, eh guys? Enjoy this. Going through the last corner here, I'm gonna get a good exit, see? Nope, didn't get a good exit. But at least I can get this slipstream maybe. Come on Nicky, come on! Woo! Hit the limiter, that's never good. Let's see how we can hit this corner. Get a good apex, get to the curb. Watch for track limits coming out here. Well, let's see if we can take this Ginetta on the entry here. Yep, that worked out. Oh, let's see if we can get close to him. See if we can get a good exit, and then we can take him at Stowe. Whoop, oversteer. Okay, got a good run on him now. Let's see, should we send it, guys? I think we're gonna send it. We're gonna send it. Woo! Yeah, yeah. Oh, maybe a little bit too late on the brakes here. Oh, oh, oh. Ah, he came back, he came back. Maybe again? No. Okay, we'll have to wait until after these couple of corners because it's a hard overtaking spot. Coming onto the main straight. Got a little bit bad exit here. Let's see if we can get a good turn 1. Or new turn 1. And maybe we can send it down here. Again. Let's hope we can. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, let's see if we can make it stick this time. Trying to come back on the outside. Oh, good exit, good exit. But he's got a good slipstream now though, so I don't know if I can make it stick. He's coming now. Ah, I hit the limiter. Oh no, he's coming, he's going! Ah! Side by side here. Oh. No, I'm gonna stick to the inside. Oh, he's going wide, he's going wide. Let's see if we can get a good exit, guys. Yeah, oh, let's push him a little bit, let's push him wide. Come on, come on. Get away from me, get away. Come on. Woo! Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. It's a fun little lap around Silverstone. With me and Niki, my buddy Niki. Thank you for watching. Enjoy. I'm just going to try to go after him now.
Well, Marco Sorensen getting rather excited about that lap. It is an exciting lap, isn't it, Ollie? And I'm sure in a high-performance GT car, there are a few better experiences in life than pedalling flat out around this place.
Oh, it's amazing. Really fun onboard to watch, actually, because you actually get an insight into how we think. You know, we kind of, a lot of people think we're sort of like robots, but actually, no, we really get into it, and especially on a circuit like this. A lot of high-speed corners, so aero is really important around here. And what was interesting was to see the toe the slipstream that Marco got on the back straight. That could be really important in the race. So hopefully we'll see lots and lots of passing. As I said, long straights between the fast corners, plenty of opportunity for slipstream and stuff around here, so it should be exciting. Absolutely, we're looking forward to it. It's great to have Ollie on board with us this weekend to give us the driver's eye view, so to speak, of what really goes on out there on the circuit. Well, down in the hub of all of the action right now on the grid, a very busy looking grid it is as well, is Andy J, and I believe he's with our pole sitters.
That's right. Hello, guys. Yes, I'm with Struan Moore. Now, we've got so much drama to talk about across the grid. We'll be getting onto that. But Struan, let's start with you because this is such a moment for you, isn't it? Your first time on pole at the front in Silverstone for British GT in the Nissan. How does it feel?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it was just a case of everyone doing their job yesterday. And it's the first pole for Bob Neville with the GT3 in British GT. So, yeah, we're all delighted with it, obviously. We knew this would be a good track for us, but kind of half the job done. But yesterday was great, and we'll see. We've just got to see.
Is there a feeling that there's a little bit of the cat amongst the pigeons here? Because we know Aston Martin, for example, have sent all their factory drivers. There's a very sort of Aston heavy grid here. We haven't seen how good the Nissan can be. This is your opportunity to really show it off, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Aston have put in an absolute massive attack for this year. You know, obviously being the only Nissan in the field makes it trickier. You know, I've never actually done some of the British tracks in a GT3 car. So coming here to Silverstone gives us a bit of an upper hand because we were here for Blancpain a couple of weeks ago. But certainly Aston Martin are, you know, seriously strong this year, and it's just brilliant to kind of nip them yesterday, but we'll see about today.
Absolutely. Tell me how you're personally feeling, and then I'll leave you to it, because you seem really cool, but I reckon there's a few nerves bubbling under, aren't there?
Yeah, I'm a bit nervous. You know, it's good to be nervous, but yeah, of course, you know, when you start on pole, you can only go backwards in the sense, not meaning to be negative, but you know, you've got clear road ahead of you. You know, we're here for a reason, so we're all positive about it. We're just looking for a good strategy. Anything can happen in this 3-hour race, so yeah, just get our heads down and see what happens.
Make the most of it. Enjoy
Cheers.
it. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers,
good stuff. Right, let's crack on down the grid, shall we? Now, I told you there was lots of drama happening. We're going to see who we can find. I also alluded to some famous faces. We'll see if we can find them. It's busy, isn't it? But let me just tell you about what I consider to be the kind of the biggest human story that's happening here, and that's with the number 1 car, the Bentley, the championship title defender, of course, Rick Parfitt Jr. racing this season with Ryan Ratcliffe. Now Ryan, overnight, got food poisoning. I saw him this morning at the track and he was grey, he was feeling rough, but he was determined to race. Unfortunately, however, things have transpired against him and he isn't able to race. It was a very late call. The Bentley it qualified P6, but they've been sent to the back of the grid because they've had to change drivers. And fascinatingly, and this is where the big twist comes in, Rick Parfitt Jr. will be racing with the man he won the championship with and indeed won this race with last season, Seb Morris. Seb isn't here yet, he's on his way. So, of course, Rick has to start in the car and probably do the longest stint he can to give Seb as much time to arrive and get in the zone. Sorry, can't see where I'm going now. Now let's try and get ourselves back there to see if we can get a word with the team. I'm also looking out for, there are 3 celebrities here. There's Helen Stanley from the Goblin Works Garage, and she's also just been named with a new show on the BBC, which is great. Then Drew Pritchard here is also here, the salvage hunter himself. Hopefully I can grab a moment with him, probably during the race actually, to talk about what the trophy means and how much it might be worth. And also, well, the guys from East 17 is here, for those of you that love your pop and can remember that far back. We're just kind of, you will have heard the wild, and all you can obviously see from everyone as well. They want to clear it because they want to crack on with the race. It's scheduled to start at 1:10. I'm trying to get you down to the Bentley, which is down here. Now, naturally, there was obviously, I spoke to Rick just before he got in the car. Now, he's absolutely mortified for Ryan because they're such good friends, and you know, there's a bond there that kind of transcends anything to do with racing, etc. But nonetheless, he's also determined to win it. And I'll tell you what, with Seb Morris, they've got history. They've proven it. And I think Seb will probably be racing with a bit between his teeth. In fact, Ryan is here. Ryan, can we grab a quick word, mate? I've just been explaining to our viewers how heartbroken you must feel. You've got full on. I feel like stepping back slightly because you can't catch food poisoning though, can you? How are you feeling? No danger of that, my friend. How are you feeling? Are you mortified and still feeling dreadful?
Yeah, gutted is the word, really. You know, yesterday was probably the best day we've had in a long time. The pace was there. Qualifying was great, but yeah, all night then I was just up being sick and thought it would pass by now, but yeah, we had to make the decision a while before the race, and so yeah, Seb's coming in now to step in, so yeah, I'm going to stay here and support them, but gutted.
Stay in the toilet.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm heartbroken for you. Good luck, get well, and we'll see you at the next round.
Thank you.
Take care, mate. Oh, you feel so bad for them, don't you? It's just absolutely mortified for him. The team is here. See the number 1 car, the Bentley. It's looking quite lonely there, isn't it? It's because, of course, they only have one driver. Rick is in. He's got his helmet on. I don't know if he's up for saying anything. No, he's got his eyes closed, so we'll just kind of leave him to it there. But obviously, you can understand what must be going through his mind. He's just thinking, right, I've got to get there. I've got to give it everything I can and absolutely go for it. I'll tell you what, should we try and grab a quick word with the pole sitters for GT4, because they've actually done really, really well, and I think they're going to clear us, so we'll just grab them while we can. Here we go. Danny, can I have a quick word? Hello, mate. How are you doing? Now, listen, this is absolutely outstanding for you, but you've got form here, haven't you?
We do, yeah. I think our car is going to be quick today. We did a good job yesterday, and hopefully we can continue that on to today.
What's your kind of approach being here? Because you know Silverstone intimately. Didn't you win here last year?
I didn't actually. I'm not sure where that
I've got that completely wrong. That's a rumour going round.
No, I think that Keeper Sure have done a great job with the car. Finley and I did a pretty good job in qualifying too, so hopefully we can bring it home today.
Good man. All right, well look, we wish you all the best. Everyone's being chucked off. I'm afraid, gents, we're going to have to throw up to you because literally there are some angry marshals. Bless them though, they do an amazing job here, but yes, we will clear the grid. It's going to be an amazing race. We'll bring you everything we can from the pits throughout. Whenever you need a person, we'll do our best to grab them. Drivers, celebrities, whoever, we'll bring you as much action as we can. Have a great race, everyone. I'll throw back to the comms now.
Thank you very much, Andy. Yes, you can feel the excitement down there on the grid pre-race as the grid is cleared, and you'll know very well what that feels like, Ollie, when you're sat in the car ready to start the race. You're surrounded by all these people and then they slowly disappear and it's just you and the car. And what goes through your mind in these moments?
Yeah, this 5 minutes or so is the longest 5 minutes of the race, really. You know, you've gone sort of, everyone's left you. You feel pretty isolated in the car there. You're on your own now to get the race started. Especially with a 3-hour race like this, the most important thing is that you get the car around the first lap. You know, it really, at the end of the first lap, it doesn't matter massively whether you make 1 or 2 positions or you stay where you are, even if you drop a position if you have to. You know, you've got to make sensible decisions in a longer race like this, because a lot can happen as we go forwards.
Absolutely. Here are the championship standings incidentally coming into this race. As you can see, it's rather tight. Lee Mole and Jelmer Berman are your championship leaders in the Mercedes. 78.5 points for them, but that's only 4.5 points clear of John Minshaw and Phil Keane in the Demon Tweaks liveried Lamborghini Huracan. Third place for Andrew Howard and Darren Turner. Andrew Howard, of course, his Beechdean squad making a return to the championship, a very successful return as well, and they are their third place in the points, despite not having won a race yet this year. More on that later. Derek Johnston and Marco Sorensen are fourth. They're only 2.5 points back, and they're 3 points ahead of Mark Farmer and Nicky Team. Of course, all of the pro drivers thus far this season have completed every race of the year with their AM drivers, so that's why they've scored the same amount of points. In GT4, Callum Poynton and Patrick Mathieson are half a point clear of Michael O'Brien and Charlie Fagg, with Will Moore and Matt Nicol-Jones even third. Ben Tuck and Ben Green, 2 Bens in the BMW, are fourth, and fifth for David Patterson and Joe Osborne. It's very tight. We've had a different winner. We've had 5 races this year and 5 different winners in each class. No team have won more than one race so far this year. Here's how they lined up though ahead of 3 hours of racing on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. It is Nissan GTR on pole position. That is the car shared by Sanchez and Moore. It will be the driver on the left-hand side that starts the car, the AM driver that starts the car for this race. So Sanchez starts with Mark Farmer alongside in the Aston Martin. Then we have the Davidson and Maxime Martin Aston Martin third, ahead of Ian Logging, Callum McLeod's Bentley, the first of the 2 Team Parker Racing Bentley Continental GTs. Richard Neary and Adam Chris Dooley are fifth on the grid, ahead of Flick Hay and Johnny Adam in their Aston Martin, winners of the opening round back at Alton Park. Andrew Howard and Darren Turner, ahead of Derek Johnston and Marco Sorensen, Sean Bolf and Rob Bell and Sam DeHaan and Johnny Cocker. Then we have Lee Mole and Jelmer Berman, championship leaders, down in 11th, ahead of John Minshaw and Phil Keane, also championship contenders, struggling in qualifying. Then it's Brown and Manderson's Aston Martin, ahead of Rick Parfitt Jr., who will start the car that he'll hand over to Seb Morris. Then we've got the GT4 cars, McLaren on pole position in GT4, that's the Hutchison and McKay shared car. Wood and Yonk in the number 61 Aston Martin, next up ahead of Murphy and Broadhurst. Moore and Matt Nicol-Jones in their 62 Aston Martin are fourth, ahead of the 2 Bens in their BMW M4, Ben Green and Ben Tuck. And it's Jones and Scott Mulvern in the number 66 Mercedes. Good variety at the front there. Then it's the number 5 McLaren ahead of the number 68 Toyota of Canning and Fielding, excuse me. 43 BMW and the 53 Nissan. The number 4 McLaren alongside the number 501 McLaren. 2 McLarens together there, 25th and 26th. Ahead of the 55 Ginetta. Callum Poynton and Patrick Mathieson, ones to watch. The second Toyota, number 86, is next, ahead of number 56 McLaren and the 144 Aston Martin GT4 car rounding out the top 30. And right at the back, we've got the 72 McLaren, the 88 Ginetta, the first of the 2 Jaguar F-Type SVRs, that's the Rawlinson and Wolf car, number 22, the 34 Ginetta, 44 Jaguar, and the number 50 Ginetta right at the back of the field on Mike Newbold and Will Burns. It's a rolling start, of course, so we are very, very close to the start of 3 hours of racing. A slightly jumbled up grid. We've got some really quick cars starting a bit further back in both classes that will be ones to watch, but at the front of the field, it is a great sight to see Nissan back on the front row. That car always tends to go well around here, be it in British GT, Blancpain, any other international GT series that comes and visits Silverstone. The Nissan GTR GT3 always seems to go well around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, and the same absolutely true of Ricardo Sanchez, who starts the car in pole position. He will hand over, of course, later on to Struan Moore, his pro driver, at some point during the race. 3 pit stops over the course of the race. We'll go through that in a bit more detail as we get towards pit stop times. There's a minimum driver time of, I believe it's 110 minutes, so each driver must be in the car for a decent length of time. They'll probably try and maximise the seat time for the pro driver in most cases, but we'll have plenty of time over the course of the race to go through the strategy in a lot more detail. Nissan from Aston Martin from Bentley, your top 2 rows. There is the number 1 car of the reigning champion, and that is going to be really interesting to see how Rick Parfitt Jr. gets on in that car. He is very, very quick indeed, and we know how good Seb Morris was in the car last year as well. Here we go then, deep breath everyone, place your bets. Who is going to take home the RAC trophy at the end of 3 hours of racing around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit? The field bunches up in 2x2 formation, the red lights go out, and we are go. Good start made by Sanchez from pole position for Nissan. He will lead down in towards turn number 1. Mark Farmer slots in line in second. They're 5 abreast in GT4. That will never work as they make their way down towards Cops Corner. Let's hope they all get out the other side in more or less one piece. I think the pole sitting a quick for sure. McLaren and Finley Hutchison has held on to the race lead there, but it is Sanchez that leads the way. Mark Farmer there in second, Ian Loggy up to third in the first of the Bentleys, ahead of Richard Neary, the Team Hammer Racing Mercedes. Edric Harvey, he's already gained a place there in the GT4 field. Yes, it is still going to be McLaren from Aston Martin in GT4. Well, Ollie, you'd think that this was a 20-minute sprint, given the way that some of, particularly the GT4 field, were battling away there into turn one. They did all get through safely, but you can't win the race in the first corner.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? 5 cars abreast going into turn one there. I guess from a driver's point of view, when you're in the car, the only other car you really know about is the one that's alongside you. So until they see the TV footage later on, they'll realise that yeah, it was a lot tighter than they maybe thought. But they've all got round. That's good news. It's amazing, isn't it, to see so many GT cars like that, you know, massive grid of cars, and everyone getting through turn one, you know, lots of sensible drivers, good racing, and now everyone can sort of get in a rhythm, as we see a car running very wide there, but everyone can get in a rhythm now and see how the race sort of plays out.
Yeah, absolutely, that will be the plan, that's for sure. I noticed Rick Parfitt Jr. already has passed 2 cars, including the championship leading Mercedes of Lee Mould. So Rick Parfitt making good progress. He's onto the tail now of the car with which he and Seb Morris diced for the title throughout 2017. That's the 33 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini, the Demon Tweaks car. But Ricardo Sanchez is leading the way. It's a 3-car fight then for second place. Mark Farmer has it, but lots of cars close behind trying to find a way through. Well, that's not good news, Ollie. We've got a McLaren that's gone around. It's the number 56 car, which was, if I can find it on my grid sheet, started by David Patterson. The McLaren seems okay, has continued on its way. Nissan leads at the end of the opening lap. Then this 3-car fight for second place. Mark Farmer, Ian Loggy and Richard Neary roar through. Aston Martin, Bentley, Mercedes, then another 3 Aston Martins in a row ahead of Sam Dahan in the next of the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis, but that is a real knot of cars, and I suppose it's difficult, isn't it, Ollie, at this stage of the race? Yes, you're mindful of the fact that it's a 3-hour race and you've got plenty of time, but when you can see the leader, Ricardo Sanchez, disappearing up the road, if you're a Rick Parfitt or a John Minshaw, you want to get there, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they've got obviously very different jobs. Obviously, Parfitt is fully playing catch-up. I guess we could say the same about Minshaw as well. You know, all they'll be focusing on is trying to get past the car in front. I guess they'll be getting some information from the team on the radio, the sort of pace that the leaders are doing. So yeah, they will be wanting to get through this slower traffic as quickly as possible, so that they, you know, it's sort of a bit of damage limitation really. They don't want to have too much time to make up later in the race. But as we said at the start, it's all about making sensible decisions and not taking any crazy risks, really.
Yeah, that's quite right. And whilst it is frustrating sometimes, if you're stuck behind a slower car, you need to mind your P's and Q's. That was Mitchell running very wide there, coming out of Abbey Corner, and it looked as though Rick Parfitt was about to get himself alongside. In the pit lane, I'm afraid, though, is one of the Toyotas, and that is Dean McDonald in the number 86 Stellar Performance car. Not such a stellar performance from that car at the start of this one, unfortunately. There is Parfitt. Now, did he make the move stick on Minshaw? Yes, he did. So the Bentley moves ahead. That was a mistake there from Minshaw, and it looked to me, Ollie, like he caught that curve coming out of the second part of the club. Very easy to do that, isn't it? That really unsettles the car. Yeah, it is.
And a club in a GT3 car is actually, you know, it's a proper corner. You know, it's on edge. You know, these cars will be full of fuel. They have over 100 kilos of fuel in the car. So yeah, it just looks like a small mistake. And you know, Parfitt's doing a really good job at the moment. He's capitalising on every opportunity he's had so far. Yeah, it's exciting. I know that obviously it's not at all what those guys want, but for us, from our side, it's an exciting thing to watch this car coming through.
Yeah, an awful lot going on throughout the midfield, isn't there? The 56 McLaren was in there. That was David Patterson, who we saw spun at the complex on the opening lap, so presumably a little bit of damage done to that McLaren, which is not good news at all. The next target for Rick Parfitt is going to be Andrew Howard, the former champion in the Beech Dean number 99 Aston Martin. You can see the way the Parfitt has gapped John Minshaw already, and he's sort of going with the cars in front, flashing their headlights, which is racing driver body language for, boy, I'm quicker than you, get out of the way. Funnily enough, I don't think Howard is going to leap out of the way, but he did make a bit of a mistake there, coming out onto the hanger straight, and so Parfitt might be able to get himself alongside. It's the wrong side of the road, really, down towards Stowe Corner. With the size difference of those two cars, the huge Bentley and the low-slung, sleek Aston Martin, but they're both front-engined GT cars, so they'll handle in a similar fashion, you'd have thought. Right around the outside goes Parfitt, that gives him the inside line for Vale. Another move made. Howard will think about coming back at him on the inside, and just won't think about it, does draw back alongside briefly. but that is 9th place that now belongs to Rick Parfit. His next target will be Sam Dahan, another one of the Lamborghinis, but that Bentley looks like one of the fastest cars on the track. The fastest car on the track is Ricardo Sanchez, perhaps unsurprisingly with clear air. He is storming into a 3.1 second lead after just 2 laps. Set the fastest lap last time around on the first full flying lap. Here is the battle of GT4. I think this is for 2nd place in GT4. The 62 Aston Martin of Will Moore just about hanging on there as he dropped down in towards Vale, but it was the number 10 car in behind, the pole sitting McLaren that has slipped down the order ever so slightly. Into 3rd place now is Finlay Hutchison, and so therefore leading GT4 is the number 5 car of Lewis Proctor. Dramas, I'm afraid, for Paul Weiss in his Jaguar, and that has not been a particularly uncommon sight this year, unfortunately. The Jags, a new project, of course, the Invictus Games squad, learning that car as it is a brand new car anyway, and they're running into the odd mechanical drama. Side by side there, in towards the loop went this fight for 2nd place in GT4, and is there a gap on the inside for Hutchison? There is not, and so still Will Moore hangs on. They're allowing, though, Lewis Proctor to escape at the front of the field. Now, Lewis Proctor started 7th in GT4. He has really stormed his way through the field to get to the head of that group. Ollie, you know better than most how good that McLaren GT4 car is, and Lewis Proctor absolutely making the most of that.
Yeah, I mean, I know both of them quite well. Actually, I've done a lot of laps in the GT4 car, and I've also coached Lewis himself. So, you know, Lewis, compared to most of these guys in the grid, has got very little experience. You know, and he's one of the McLaren's. He's on McLaren's driving development program as one of their junior drivers, and as you can see, he's doing an amazing job in his first season. He's made some big steps forward. The guys, the 4 junior drivers, have worked really well together, and they seem to be learning off of each other. We've got a bit of a 4-way battle here now. Is that Lewis on the...
This is for 2nd. Hutchison having got that 2nd place away from Will Moore. Will then tried to get it back through Cobb's Corner, but couldn't quite do it. So we do have a McLaren 1-2, and then Aston Martin's 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, so McLaren's looking strong. You know, I mean, we can see from qualifying that we've got 5 manufacturers in the top 6, I believe, in GT4. So, you know, it's really good. That's what all the teams, all the manufacturers want. That we want good, tight racing like this. You know, as we said, let's you know, sensible few laps. We've got a 3-hour race, and you know, we've had constant passing, especially in the GT4 category. So it's really good to see.
No, it is. No complaints from me, that's for sure. I'm really enjoying this. We had 4 different manufacturers in the top 5 on the grid in GT3 as well. So there is great variety across both classes in British GT competition, which is just what we want to see. Having got that 2nd place away, Finlay Hutchison is now starting to break away from the Aston Martins behind, going after race leader Lewis Proctor. This is a bit further up the order, though, in GT3, and this is Richard Neary in 4th position at the moment in the Mercedes, just about, but he's only just managing to keep the number 47 machine of Graham Davidson at bay. Aston Martins have looked quick all year. At the moment, they're 2nd and 5th, the highest 2 Aston Martins, and then 6th and 7th as well as the next 2 come through. Derek Johnston there just ahead of Flick Haig. There is Rick Parfit. Flick Haig, of course, became the first ever female racing driver to win a round of the championship outright back at Old Park at the start of the year. Ollie is pointing at the time screen. What have you seen, Ollie?
That Rick Parfit seems to be, I believe, the quickest Pro-Am GT3 car on track at the moment.
Yes, quick
2:02.9 on that last lap. So he is really on a mission, isn't he, to come through. As I said earlier, it's quite an exciting position for him to be. We'll be so fired up. Look at that. It's just telling us that now on the screen here, you know, flashing the headlights. He's really on a mission, so he's doing a good job at the minute.
You get to the end of a 3-hour GT race, and I'm amazed that headlight flashing button hasn't been worn out, because it gets well used, doesn't it? This is a fight for position. You just wait till you see them in traffic a bit later on when they're trying to flash the GT4 cars out of the way. Rick, having leapt onto the back of this train of cars in front of him, being led by Derek Johnston, so this is 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th place cars together here, having closed in on them, all of the headlight flashing in the world has not allowed him to find a way past the Lamborghini of Sam Dahan yet. So the Bentley Continental GT3, which has struggled so far this year, it doesn't go particularly well in the wet, so a rained-off Oulton Park clearly wasn't going to be the best of situations for the reigning champions to start their title defence. Then we went to Rockingham, and they had a few bits of contact. It was a bit damp throughout practice and qualifying as well, so they never quite got the setup right. Snetterton, arguably, they should have been on the podium, and they will say that themselves. And things just didn't quite go to plan in either race at Snetterton. That was the Jaguar back in the pit lane. That was Paul Weiss, who had started on the back row of the grid anyway, and unfortunately his race hasn't got any better than qualifying did leaders though, back down towards the end of another lap, or this midfield squabble I should say. Flick Haig, oh no, Rick Parfitt spins, and that was all on his own, going through Lovefield. Now what happened there? Rick Parfitt, the man who we've been documenting has been making great progress up the order, seems to have just thrown it all away. Now let's hope he can get that car started. He was careful not to get it beached on the curb there. It is fired back up, and the number one machine heads back on its way. But, well, talk about Kirsten, the commentator, Ollie. Talk us through this.
Yeah, it was strange, wasn't it? I mean, we can see that Lamborghini now is obviously thinking, right, Rick's on a mission here and putting some pressure. But, yeah, it just looked like Rick almost went in a little bit hot, didn't he? And he was hard on the brakes. Obviously, when you're on the brakes, all the weight goes to the nose of the car. It makes the rear nervous, and that looks as though the rear's just come round on him. He'll be really frustrated with himself after that, I think. You know, and obviously, well, I mean, we get the excitement now of Rick pushing his way back through again, and I'm sure we'll see some green sectors coming up on the screen in a minute. But yeah, that's a real shame after the start that he's had to this race.
Well, for the first time in this race, Rick's got some clean air in front of him. It's just not quite in the situation he might have liked. He's 7 seconds now behind Lee Mole in the Mercedes. This is for the GT4 lead, and Finlay Hutchison has now caught Lewis Proctor, and now we have McLaren on McLaren for the class lead. They've pulled quite some distance ahead now of the Aston Martin battle going on behind them, so they can settle this amongst themselves for the time being. Down through Maggott and Beckett's a supreme sequence of corners, not really an overtaking opportunity, but Finlay will be looking for the best possible exit out of this corner, Chapel Road, to get in the slipstream down the Hanger Straight, and maybe, Ollie, have a go down in Stowe Corner.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually you just mentioned the exit there. It's so important, especially in a GT4 car. You know, the more power you have in the car, the less important the exit is. So with these cars that restrict to sort of 430 horsepower, the exit is so important. And when we're coaching these guys as well, you know, the driver development program, we are always talking to them about exits. And then when you've got someone in your mirror like that, like Lewis has at the moment, it's so easy to overdrive and compromise those exits. So he's just got to stay disciplined, stay relaxed, and make sure he's getting these exits so that he doesn't lose a place here. But they're really close now. It's going to get quite exciting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. The next couple of corners are a couple of prime overtaking opportunities here, maybe, for Finlay Hutchison to try and retake the lead. Remember, he started from GT4 pole position. Oh, couldn't get to the inside, so takes the wide line in, trying to carry some good exit speed, but that puts him on the wrong side of the road again into the next left-hander. Can he get up the inside into the left-hand kink and Adrian? He might just done it, climbs the curb, and that maybe lost him a bit of traction there, didn't it? And he came out of the corner, and he wasn't quite able to complete the manoeuvre. Sits in the slipstream. We saw from that on-board lap that we had earlier on with Marco Sorensen just what an effect the slipstream has down the Wellington Straight. Does he poke out to the inside? No. Discretion the better part of valour, although he's forced Lewis there. That's exactly what you're saying, isn't it, Ollie? With the pressure on, Lewis was just a bit later on the brakes than he should have been. It didn't quite allow the move to be made this time, but it nearly did.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes in a race like this, you need to concede the place. Yeah, we're racing, we're defending. You obviously want to stay in the lead. You know, Lewis will know he's in the lead of the GT4 class, but sometimes you're better off conceding the place and then going with that other car, because he doesn't want the others now to catch them. You know, if these guys are battling and defending and stuff, it's quite easy for the other cars to catch them, and then you're fully in the pack then, you know. Whereas the sensible decision, if Hutchinson's that much quicker, might be that we just let Hutchinson go and then follow and go with him, and then keep that gap to the other cars. So, you know, it's this decision that you've got to make. You know, Lewis might feel the car's coming on, he might feel the car's getting stronger, and that in a minute he's going to start pulling away, or so it's a decision you have to make in the car, obviously based on the situation, really.
It's an awful lot easier to say that sat here than sat in the car, though, isn't it? Because when you're in the heat of battle, it's race. You want to stay in front, you want to lead the race, you want to win the race. Oh dear, well, that's not the way to win a race. Someone has lost a wheel. Where is that? That is... It's Beckett. Well, it is past Beckett, isn't it? Now, I did see in the background of the previous shot Toyota skipping across the tarmac runoff area there. Whether that was the culprit, I know not. But anyway, more on that as we get it. But there's a car with 3 wheels on its wagon somewhere out there. Anyway, yes, in the heat of battle, it's very difficult sometimes to think too tactically, but you are absolutely right. You can see that with their battling going on, the Aston Martins behind are looming ever larger in their mirrors, and that gap, I'd say, is almost halved now between the second place McLaren of Finlay Hutchison and the number 61 Aston Martin of Tom Wood. that is now up into third place in the GT4 class. So, yes, there we are. It wasn't Toyota, it was the 68 car this time, Tom Canning. So we had the other Toyota of Dean McDonald in the pit lane earlier on. And Tom Canning, unfortunately, well, was that contact inflicted, I wonder? It would seem strange that 15 minutes into a race, the wheel would suddenly just depart company with the car, but there we go. Right, these two cars on screen were 7 seconds apart about 5 minutes ago, and now the Bentley of Rick Parfitt is back ahead of Lee Mole, that car that won back at Rockingham, remember, early on in the season, but it's been wonderful consistency from them. They've had a podium at Upton Park as well, and that means that they're leading the championship, but at the moment, Lee just doesn't quite seem to have the pace, certainly, of Rick Parfitt, but then who does have the pace of Rick Parfitt? He has been really, really quick out there over this first 15 minutes or so, ignoring the spin that he had. He's been very impressive indeed. McLaren battle rejoined at the head of GT4, and let's see, what was the gap between second and third? Hutchison to Wood was about 2 seconds. Wood was actually slower than Hutchison on the previous lap, so forget everything we've been saying about how they're holding each other up. They actually pulled a bit of a gap over the Aston Martins behind on the previous lap, but still, Finley cannot prise the door open.
Hutchinson's been passed, hasn't he? Oh no, sorry, no, he hasn't. No, he's been caught though. They're pretty close, aren't they, those two?
Yes, all these McLarens, there are a lot of them, aren't there? Nice move made there though, and Finley finally makes the move stick, and we see an awful lot of moves down there, don't we, at Stoke Corner? You've got the slipstream down the Hangar Straight. It's a nice wide open corner, and that is a really nice place to make a move.
Yeah, and now Lewis has just got to make the sensible decision to go with him.
Yeah, they've got number 5. Oh, well, that's the 144 Aston Martin, which is actually, that's one of the Pro-Am GT4 cars. The top 2 cars, of course, in the GT4 class at the moment, running within the Silver Cup. That is the first of our Pro-Am cars there, the 144 machine, started by Matthew George, all the way back in 2, 4, 6, about 10th or so, 10th or 11th on the GT4 grid, and he's all the way up there into third place now, and he's coming on really strong, and he, if anything, looks quicker than the two McLarens at this stage of the race. There is Will Moore. He therefore has been voted down to 5th in the GT4 ranks. As we check back in with the GT3 battling, and still the same order, so still Derek Johnston there in 6th position, keeping Flick Haig and Sam DeHaan at bay, Andrew Howard 9th, John Mitchell 10th, John Balfe, who we haven't really mentioned yet, in the McLaren that was last seen in the concrete wall about 10 laps into the 2-hour race at Rockingham, when Sean was on a real charge through the order, unfortunately tangled with the back mark and got sent straight into the concrete wall at the final turn. They rebuilt the car, had to miss Snetterton in order to get the car rebuilt, but they are here this weekend. Sean just bedding the car in down in 11th place for the time being. Sam DeHaan here then trying to find a way past Flick Haig, who I started saying before was the first ever female race winner overall in British GT. Tom Canning unfortunately has brought Toyota into the pit lane, so that car will require a fair bit of work to be done. Sam DeHaan there having a little look at the inside of Flick into Brooklyn. Nothing came of it, but you can do an awful lot of damage, can't you, Oliver? If you lose a wheel or you get a puncture or something early in the lap, of course you want to get the car back to the pit lane, but in doing so you can often do even more damage to the car, can't you?
Yeah, 100%, yeah. And you know what, for some reason it always seems to happen as far away from the pit lane as possible.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you get a puncture, it seems to be past the pit exit, so or lose a wheel or something like that. So you do, I mean, you've got to obviously find a balance. You want to get the car back as quickly as you can, but then doing as little damage as possible. You know, you often see when cars get punctures and they get the car back to the pits, but then the tyres come off, it's destroyed the rear diffuser, the wing and everything, and then it's, then you kind of throw away the rest of the race. So you've got to find a balance, obviously, between not losing too much time and actually getting the car back in one piece,
Yeah, exactly. The racing gods can be cruel, can't they? And it is funny how these things often work out that way. Lead gap, by the way, 3.6 seconds. On the previous lap, though, Mark Farmer in second place was 2 seconds quicker than the race leader. So we'll monitor that on the timing screen. On our screens, we can see the fight going on for, fourth place. We've had a change for fourth place. Graham Davidson has got the Aston Martin ahead of Richard Neary's Mercedes. So he has picked up fourth position. We're getting notification that contact between cars 56 and 77 will be investigated after the race. 56 being David Patterson's Tolman Motorsport car, and 77 Mark Murfitt in the Fox Motorsport car. Now, the Fox Motorsport team manager was called to race control about 10 minutes ago as well. So I think there's been some sort of shenanigans there early on in the race, and ongoing discussions, it would seem. We're getting endless notifications of drivers being told off for exceeding the track limits. We'll ignore the notifications that they're being warned until they start getting even actual time penalties, which will come, I'm sure. Graham Johnson there in the multicoloured McLaren at number 501, running down, well, 20th position overall, but what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th place. This is in GT4, diving up the inside there. That was a brave move down towards Copse Corner. That was the 42 of Ben Green, the Century Motorsport BMW. Did he make that move stick? I think he did, and I think he's opened the floodgates as well. Everyone else has come pouring past the McLaren. Oh, well, actually, he's found a gap back in line, but this is a real jostling pack. BMW, Mercedes, and Nissan, and then another Mercedes, McLaren, I beg your pardon, Nissan, and then another McLaren, and then in amongst it all is the race leader. And this, of course, Ollie, is arguably the hardest part of being in a GT3 car in a race like this, dealing with back markers. This McLaren is not going to have another clear lap for the rest of the race. There is always going to be traffic to deal with, and it's so easy to get tangled up with them, isn't it?
It is, but you say that, it's almost harder, I think, being in the slower car than it is being in the faster car, you know, because you've got to remember that this race, you know, these GT4 guys are running their own race, you know, they don't want to lose any time to the car in front, they don't want to lose any positions to the other GT4 cars, but they've also got to let the GT3 traffic through, so it can be more difficult being the slower car. And we've got someone here ready for a driver change.
Yeah, that's Callum McLeod, I think, waiting to take over from Ian Loggy. Now, well, there is no pit window as such. They can pit whenever they like, but they have to pit 3 times over the course of the race. So the strategy is a bit more open in this Silverstone 500 race than it would tend to be. Usually there is a designated window of opportunity in which all of the cars must come into the pit lane and conduct their driver changes. But in this race, because it's a bit longer, to sort of incorporate the spirit of endurance racing a little bit more here, then there's a bit more openness of strategy. I don't quite know what happened there to Graham Johnson, but he went an awfully long way off track coming through Aintree, and there were a few GT3 cars in the mix as well there. Has he done any damage to the car? He's had rather a rough time of it over the last lap or so, hasn't he? He's been losing places left, right and centre. Richard Neary there trying to get the Mercedes right around the outside. Now Richard, I know he was going there because there was plenty of clean air, but he's on all of the marbles and the dust and the rubber and the debris that gets kicked offline, and Ollie, it can take them often half a lap or so, can't it, to clear the tyres back up after that? At
least, you know, if at this stage of the race, if you pick up these marbles, as we can see there, that's a really good shot of it there on the outside of Copse. If you pick up those marbles, it can take 2 or 3 laps to clear them off. You know, these tyres now are super sticky, super hot. So we've got the car in here.
Yeah, this is Ian Loggy.
7.
This is the other of the Team Parker Racing Bentleys, the one that's been getting less screen time but has been doing better because they were running up in 3rd place before this pit stop. So the driver is out, that's Ian Loggy getting out, and the fuel hose is in, so they can't have anybody touching the car apart from the refueler whilst the fuel is going in. That's obviously a safety precaution. That gives Callum and Ian a chance to debrief very quickly on the pit apron. Meanwhile, the fight for 2nd place within GT4 still raging on. This is Lewis Proctor. He's now fallen away from Finley Hutchison. On the inside of him comes 1 Aston Martin, come 2 Aston Martins, because we've got Mark Farmer in the GT3 car, 2nd place overall, putting a lap on them. And then we've got the side-by-side, indeed the change of position there for 2nd place in GT4. So that was the 144 car of Matthew George moving his way through ahead of Lewis Proctor, but Lewis again pretty sensible there. He fought a bit harder to hold on to the race lead, but having lost the lead, I guess now, if there is a much quicker car arriving on the scene, it makes sense almost just to let them go. Don't get too tangled up with them. There's 2.5 hours still to go.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And Lewis now will be just trying to get consistent times in, trying to make obviously no mistakes, and just keep the gap as small as possible. As we've still got a long race to go. Lewis got to do another stint again later in the race as well. So we've got a slow-moving McLaren here coming in the pits as well. Yeah,
Adam Ballon. I think that might be a front right puncture, Ollie, possibly. That has all the hallmarks. Now that is that can't be a wear-related puncture at this early stage of the race. So you would imagine that that's contact of some sort, or a curb strike maybe. I know if you hit the curbs when the pressures are low, that can do some long-term damage, can't it?
It can, but you'd expect that really on the outlap. By this point, the pressure should be way up to their operating pressure. So it could be that these cars are now so heavily loaded with carbon fibre, you know, they've got, or lightly loaded, I guess,
yes.
but they've got so much carbon fibre on there that it could be a bit of carbon somewhere that's giving him that puncture. So a real shame, and obviously, as we were saying earlier, now got to get it back to the pits as quick as he can without doing any further damage.
Yeah, he was at the club corner when we saw him there, so he's got over half the lap to go to get back to the pit lane. This is all getting rather dicey, so we've got Callum McLeod here in the Bentley Continental GT3 that has made its pit stop. Now he, of course, is the pro driver in that car, and so he's able to scythe his way seemingly at ease through some of the AM drivers that are still in the GT3 ranks. That was John Minshaw, and now he's on the inside of Flick Haig as well. Oh, they're three abreast there, because there was I don't think Callum quite realised there was a GT4 Aston Martin in the mix there as well. But Callum McLeod, although he's a lap down, he's the only GT3 car that has made its first mandatory pit stop. So I suppose the plan there for Team Park Racing was to get the pro in now. They're running in a decent position anyway, but maybe by getting him in 2 or 3 laps before everyone else plugs the pro driver in, he can get some really quick laps in, and hopefully when the first set of pit stops are done, that car will find itself a bit further up the order. There is John Minshaw in Demon Tweak's car, the car run by Barwell Motorsport, still following around Flick Haig, and Sean Balfe in behind as well. They make their way out onto the Bentley Straight, well in amongst the GT4 traffic. You can see the pace differential there, though. We talk about the AM drivers, and they do a remarkable job, don't they? And of course, they're all very evenly matched between themselves. But you can see now Callum McLeod on his first lap in the car, and he's passed 3 or 4 other GT3 cars. The pro drivers, you guys really are a class of your own, aren't you?
Thank you.
Very well.
You said, yes, obviously our job is very important, but a massive part of our job over the race weekend is to work with our AM driver as well. You know, part of our job is to coach that driver, make sure they're happy. We've got to set a car up that is fast for us, but also comfortable for them to drive as well. So it's a really important part of our job. If we can gain a second a lap during their stint, it's more important than gaining 2/10 a lap during our stint. So you have to manage your time over the race weekend and over the whole season, really, when you're working with an AM driver, to get the most out of them as well as obviously the most out yourself.
No, absolutely, and it's all well and good having a really, really quick pro driver, but if the AM driver then isn't as competitive as the other AM drivers, it's not going to work. So it's in the best interest of the pro to work with their teammate and make sure they're both performing as best they can. A bit of contact there, I think, between John Minshaw and Sean Balfe. John made a bit of a mistake coming out of Chapel onto the Hangar Straight, just ran out a bit wide, had a bit of a tail slide. The rear of that Lamborghini doesn't look particularly happy at this stage of the race, and he's fallen back into the clutches of the McLaren now, car 101, which is slowly but surely starting to increase its pace. They found a way past Andrew Howard in the Aston Martin, the Beach Dean Aston Martin, who in turn is being caught by Rick Parfitt as well on his mission to climb up through the order. But we are nearly half an hour into this race here, the Silverstone 500, the RAC trophy up for grabs, and already we've seen very, very fierce competition. Callum McLeod, Ollie has spotted, is going rather quickly, isn't he? Outright fastest middle sector, and again in the final sector as well. So as far as the pro driver in that car is concerned, he's doing exactly the job needed of him, and at this rate, when the pit stops all shake out, that car is going to be right up towards the front of the field, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I was just trying to do a few calculations actually, because I guess if Ian Loggie's out of the car half an hour into the race, then he's going to have to do a full stint later in the race to get his minimum driver time. So I guess those guys, their second stint will be a long one. So it'll be interesting to see how that strategy works in relation to what everyone else is doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Whilst the AM drivers might be starting to get out of the cars now, they will be back in again at some point later on in the race, because both the AM and the pro driver have to do a certain portion of the race between themselves. You can't just send your AM out for the first stint and then stick the quicker pro driver in for the rest of the race. They both have to take an even share of the workload. And of course, yes, they've got Callum McLeod in early in this stint, but that means that Ian Loggie's next stint will have to be a bit longer. So it's a short-term gain, but then Ian Loggie's going to be in the car for a while amongst the other pro drivers later on. So short-term gain, possible long-term loss, but I suppose track position is king, isn't it?
Yeah, that's obviously what they're going for, is track position. It looks like, was that Rob Bell there getting ready?
I think it was, yes.
Yeah, so it looks like Rob Bell's getting ready to jump in the 101 McLaren GT3 car. So Rob looks as though he's ready to go out, and looked like John Minshaw was running a little bit wide there, maximising the track limits. It's actually quite a difficult thing to manage on a circuit like this. You know, a modern Grand Prix circuit, they're so fast and flowing, and it's so tempting to use these big runoffs that we've got everywhere. And obviously, you know, British GT actually do a really good job of monitoring the track limits and penalising people for abusing track limits, because, you know, not many years ago that would have been a gravel trap or a barrier, and you know, they punish you a lot harder than British GT do with the regulations. So I think it's really good that, you know, that they're on the case with track limits, because it keeps it the same for everyone then as well, and it puts a little bit of pressure when you see that you're sort of running wide on the exit of a corner. You do rein it in a little bit when you know that there's obviously likely a penalty the other side of it.
I think if they're enforced properly, there are not many people who disagree with track limits rules. It's when it seems to be one rule for one and one rule for another. But as you're absolutely right in saying, the British GT Championship, very fair application of the track limits rules. It gets reset every now and again as well throughout the race, so that just because your teammate's been taking liberties with track limits, you don't necessarily get punished. New fastest lap of the race, guess who? Callum McLeod in the number 7 Team Parker Racing Bentley, at 2 minutes 1.0. He's lapping about 2 and a bit seconds quicker than the race leader in this stage of the race. The battle on screen though is one between John Minshaw and Sean Balfe. This is for 8th place at the moment then, and still the McLaren can't get through. It looks a bit quicker at this stage of the race though. There is the GT4 battle going on. The number 61 Academy Motorsport Aston Martin that shared the front row with the number 10 McLaren has slipped down the order ever so slightly and lost another place to Ben Green on the previous lap. In fact, Ben Green in the number 42 BMW is starting to pick its way back up the order. Ben Green in the car that he shares with Ben Tuck. They are another one of the Silver Cup entrants. They have to spend an extra 10 seconds in the pit lane during their pit stops, because they are part of the Silver Cup rather than a traditional Pro-Am entry, and they also have to carry an extra 10 kilos of success or of penalty ballast, if you like, for being a Silver Cup entrant, because basically 2 silver drivers in theory should be quicker than 1 Pro and 1 Am, and so the idea is that to level the playing field they have to spend a bit longer in the pits, and their cars are a little bit heavier anyway. But then I guess they're carrying that weight penalty all year long, so eventually they'll find ways, Ollie, of tweaking the setup and learning to drive around that, because there are things you can do to adapt to a heavier car, aren't there?
Yeah, there are things, and there are things that you have to do to adapt, with improving brake cooling, because the brakes obviously run a little bit hotter. Your tyre wear obviously is a little worse when you're carrying more weight on the car, and as you said, you've got to change, you know, make various setup changes to compromise for that extra weight. I think it's a pretty fair way of balancing it though. You know, having a silver car is a very strong car. A lot of these silver drivers have got extensive single-seater experience and GT experience as well. So I think it's a fair way to balance the cars out by putting some weight on them.
Yeah, nice little Ginetta battle going on here. The number 33, sorry, not 33, beg your pardon, 34 car, the Callum Hawkins road-driven Team Hard machine, dicing away. This is for 28th place on the track, but they're dicing equally as hard as if it was for the class lead. And the 88 Ginetta is the one he's racing with. That's Ben Wallace, and Ben Wallace will be inside, will go through finally after half a lap or so of trying. And the 2 Ginetta G55s that, on some of the more tight technical circuits, the Ginetta does seem to work very well. Partly always tend to be in the mix. Seems like maybe on some of the more wide open circuits, the Ginetta just lacks a little bit. And but you know, you take your chances when you've got them. And if you're at a circuit where you know that your car is maybe not the best suited, then perhaps you have to just accept that you just need to pick up whatever points you can and not really take too many risks. So they make their way back along the Heritage pit straights from where we are based this weekend. There's Lee Mole in the Mercedes. Now Lee, of all of the Am drivers in GT3, does seem to have been struggling the most in this stint. He is already, Ollie, a minute off the race lead. Now, however good your pro driver is, that is quite a gap to be tasked with closing, isn't it?
It's very difficult. Yeah. It's very difficult because you've got to think between the pros, obviously the gap between the front pros and the not so fast pros is much smaller. You know, we're talking a few tenths rather than a few seconds. So to make that time up over the pro stint is really difficult.
Mark Farmer and Graham Davidson here on nose to tail now for this second position. So this is second place overall. It's an all Aston Martin affair, but of course it's the TF Sport car ahead of the Jetstream Motorsport car, which looks a little bit quicker at this stage. Graham Davidson looks to the inside line. Oh, the door is closed! Oh no! And Mark Farmer goes around. You could see that one coming, couldn't you? Graham Davidson was clearly quicker. There'd been a mistake from Farmer a couple of corners earlier. And then when Davidson was up the inside, Farmer closed the door. Now, is there any damage done? Ollie, talk us through this one.
It's somewhere you never really see an overtaking move. I know that it was tempting because of the mistake earlier in the complex of corners, but as you said, you could kind of see the gap closing from quite a long way back. It's a really quick sequence of corners as well, so it's not as though you have time to look in your mirrors and see if there's anyone there before you turn in, you know. I almost wonder whether it would have been better just waiting until the straight. He would have had the run onto the hanger straight up towards Stowe to have a look at a move. Be interesting to see if he gets away with it. I imagine that the team will not be happy with that. So we'll see what happens now. But yeah, it was unfortunate, but it's a brave place to have a go at a move.
The good news is I think both of them have been able to continue without too much damage. So at least we haven't lost either of the Aston Martins. And of course, Farmer will lose second place. That will promote Rich Near into third. This almighty tussle that's going on is in GT4, and we seem to have seen an awful lot of these Academy Motorsport Aston Martins, don't we? They've been right in the thick of the action. This is for fourth position, I think I'm right in saying, in GT4. Yeah, fourth place overall in GT4, and it is the 62 Aston Martin, just about keeping Ben Green at bay for the time being. But Ben Green and Aston Martin sandwich really wants to get out of this predicament if he can, and we've seen all year long that Ben is not afraid to get his elbows out when it comes to working his way through the field, but he just can't get himself out of this particular group for the time being. We've got the Nissan in there as well, which we haven't really had much chance to mention as of yet, and that is Kelvin Fletcher, Emmerdale actor Kelvin Fletcher, but pretty rapid racing driver as well himself. He's had some British Touring Car Championship experience, raced minis before that. His younger brother Braden actually as well, a very rapid racing driver too. So Kelvin Fletcher there in car number 53, the Nissan at the back of this group. That Nissan is getting quicker as the year goes on, and more to the point, getting more reliable as well.
Yeah, it's good to see. It's good to see that we've got another manufacturer in the mix as well. And it looks here as though he's the quickest out of these four, doesn't it, at the minute? I've actually coached Ben Green as well, and he's a very clever driver. You know, he really thinks about things, so it'll be interesting to see how he works out this situation. Hopefully I can put my cursor on this again like I did the last time. But he's doing a really good job at the minute. But it does look as though that Nissan's the quickest out of the four at the minute.
Yeah,
so it'll be interesting to see if he manages to pick his way through.
Absolutely. I'm sure Ben Green would argue that he's the quickest, but he's getting held up by the Aston Martins because, of course, he's in that awful position of having to attack the car in front and defend from the cars behind, and you then go for a move in case it doesn't work. You end up losing momentum and losing positions, which may well have happened here because they're almost three abreast down towards Copse Corner. He's looking to the outside, looks back to the inside. Ben Green all over the curb. Oh dear, this is nerve-wracking stuff, isn't it? We're still only 40 minutes into this race, and Ben Green is desperately trying to get this fourth place in GT4 away. He's alongside now into Beckett. It's a brave man. He goes side by side through here. They almost lean on each other. The Aston Martin gets eased out wide. Green's on the grass as well. Oh dear, well you could sort of see that ending in tears, and actually that was remarkably clean, really. Kelvin Fletcher will also benefit from all of this, and Will Wall possibly will go from right at the front of this group right down to the back of it. We'll watch now for the straight line speed difference between the Aston Martin and the Nissan. The Aston Martin ahead now, the 61 car, that is Tom Wood, is now starting to reapply the pressure onto the tail of the BMW of Ben Green. Fletcher makes the move stick. We've got the Aston Martin GT3 car in the mix as well, trying to find its way through, which it will do. That is the 26 Aston Martin, isn't it, of Michael Brown, as they make their way through Club Corner. And we have to put that GT4 battle on hold for the time being. But yes, side by side through Beckett's is something that takes some doing, and both Ben and Will did well to avoid any significant sort of contact there. Will Moore unfortunately ends up losing quite a few positions, but that sort of goes back to what we were saying before about how in that situation when there is so long to go, maybe it's better just to bail out of it rather than risk the contact. Having said that, he's throwing it back up the inside now with great abundance into the village complex here. We've got 501 McLaren still in the fray too. Graham Johnson not far behind them. But yes, this is very, very interesting stuff amongst the midfield runners in GT4. But GT4 is always like this, isn't it, Ollie? The GT3 cars sometimes get themselves a bit more spaced out, but GT4 is not the case. How on earth did Calvin Fletcher get the car stopped then? He was completely sideways going into the corner.
Yeah, that was impressive, wasn't it? That was a really good bit of car control. That it was. He did well to get that stopped, and we've got the McLaren getting in the mix here as well. So this should get quite exciting here.
Yeah, Nissan, Aston Martin and McLaren, just what makes the British GT Championship so exciting. Davison having a look at the inside there. You don't know where to look in this race, do you? We've got, I can see on the timing screen, a couple of the GT3 cars now starting to think about making pit stops too. I believe Barwell have brought one of their cars in. There it is, right on cue. Sam Dehaan is in. We assume, therefore, to hand over to Johnny Cocker, who will have got in that car. The timing screen will update when he goes back out onto the circuit, so we'll know for sure, because of course they may or may not have to change drivers at every pit stop, but I think that will be, generally speaking, the order of the day. Down the Hangar Straight we go. This fight between Aston Martin and McLaren still raging, and Graham Davison right round the outside. Well, if he makes that stick, that's ultra impressive. He'll have the inside line down towards Vale, and I think he might just have made that work. So Graham Davison making a move, and we've got the number 4 Ginetta also in there, we believe, of Charlie Fagg. Yes, there we go. Charlie Fagg is running 7th, I think, overall in GT4. That's the blue and white HHC Ginetta at the tail end of that group. Now, what have you seen there, Ollie?
That's the McLaren,
number 4. I beg your pardon. I'm getting my McLarens mixed up, aren't I? Number 4 McLaren. That's what you were trying to tell me. There we go. I never did learn sign language. Right, number 4, Tottenham Motorsport McLaren, not HHC Ginetta. Apologies. Side by side then up towards the left-hander, and Calvin Fletcher, on the inside line now has to fend off everybody else. But that number 4 McLaren of Charlie Fagg, car that of course he shares with Michael O'Brien, is starting to make its presence known. It started down on the 7th row of the grid, in GT4. Oh no, that was a little unnecessary, I feel there. And Charlie Fagg, just as we were talking about him, is out of the race. Broken rear right suspension, he's in the gravel trap. That was contact with the Nissan of Calvin Fletcher. Ollie, what do you think of that?
Well, it'd be interesting to see it from this angle again, won't it? Because it looked like Charlie was up. He was up the inside, wasn't he? He wasn't fully alongside. So I wonder whether Fletcher maybe didn't know he was there, and it looked like he just turned in, and Charlie was there, and he's caught the rear corner, hasn't he? Broken the rear suspension. So
yeah, puncture for the
I'm
Nissan.
not really sure if you can point a blame at anyone there, really. It just kind of looked like a bit of a racing incident. But that is a real shame for Charlie Fagg, who, as you said, has now got broken suspension. He's sat in the gravel. I wonder whether we're going to get a safety car, do you think?
Well, that is a possibility, in which case it turns the strategy game on its head, doesn't it? Because we've got some cars that are pitted, some cars that haven't. The bulk of the GT4 field coming in, I wonder whether we'll see some teams start to react to the potential of a safety car here and get the cars in now, because, of course, the cars that have already pitted have become trapped a lap down, so that could get really interesting if we get a safety car situation. Charlie's absolutely okay, he's out of the car, wandering away, but yes, that's not the way that he wanted his race to end. The Nissan as well, unfortunately, Calvin Fletcher got some damage in that, a front left puncture, I think. Hopefully that is the extent of the damage, and they can bring it in, turn that into the mandatory stop that I think they were about to do anyway, get the car back on its way. Right, back with the GT3 cars now. We've got Sean Balfe here in 7th position. We've got the Aston Martin behind, which has pitted, I believe. That is the 47 car, which now has Maxime Martin on board, having made its pit stop. So this is not for position at the moment. Maxine, the pro driver. Oh, another car in the gravel now. The 77 Mercedes, and that's Mark Murfitt. Now, they've had a lively race because remember, they're one of the cars that is being investigated for contact post-race. Oh no, Callum McLeod! Callum McLeod involved in that as well by the looks of it, down at Abbey Corner, and the fastest man on the track is off the road. He's stuck in the gravel trap. Now, can he get out of there? Surely the car will be beached. He may be allowed some outside assistance, but what drama up at Abbey Corner, and I'd be fascinated to see what happened. Callum had just set a new fastest lap of the race, 2 minutes 0.853. Ian Loggy watches on from the pit lane with extreme disappointment. The Team Park Racing squad can't believe the look they're having today. One of their drivers is down with food poisoning, and another, and their quickest car, arguably so far, is in the gravel trap. Well. Now, if we were wondering about the potential for a safety car before, you'd have to imagine the potential for a safety car is now increased even further. We've got Finlay Hutchison in now in the number 10 McLaren to hand over to Dan Mackay, and that will be its first mandatory pit stop done. But what does this mean for the shake-up of the field? In GT3, this car still leads. That is Ricardo Sanchez. He has not pitted, nor has Richard Neary in the Mercedes in second. The number 11 Aston Martin is still Mark Farmer in third, and the 75 Aston Martin of Flick Haig is fourth. John Minshaw has brought the Demon Tweaks Lamborghini in to hand over to Phil Keane. But we still have over half of the GT3 field, even, easy for me to say, that have not yet made their pit stop. So clearly they don't feel there's an immediate threat of safety car. If that's not exceeding track limits, I don't know what is. Ricardo Sanchez pushing on here, but Ollie, he's 18.2 seconds clear of the rest of the field. What a stint he's put in.
Really good, really good. I mean, obviously we've got to remember that he's a silver against the AMs in the AM stint, so I don't think that gap's going to keep increasing like that when all the pros are in the GT3 Pro-Am cars. So, but he's, I mean, you can't fault what he's done so far in this race. He's just got his head down at the start. His lap time's been consistent. He's been the fastest, if not one of the fastest, throughout the whole stint. So he's doing a really good job, and he's picked his way through the traffic well, which is also important. It's great putting in really fast lap times and purple sectors here and there, but then if you're going to lose a second more than anyone else passing GT4 cars, then you don't gain from the pace that you've got. So he's done a really good job so far.
Yeah, exactly. Phil Keane jumps into the number 33 Lamborghini, which fires back into life. The number 10 McLaren does likewise. That's one of our GT4 front runners, of course. Just back to that Nissan of Ricardo Sanchez, car number 24, that he shares with Struan Moore, of course. With them both being silver drivers, they're entered in the Silver Cup. Therefore, they have that 10-second extra penalty in the pit stops and the extra 10 kilos of weight in the car. 10-second stop-go penalty. We sort of thought this might happen for the car that's now being driven by Maxime Martin, but was being driven earlier on by Graham Davidson. This, remember, was the car that made the contact with Mark Farmer. Fair call, do you think, a 10-second stop-go?
I think so. I know that it was completely unintentional from Graham, but it was a mistake that was very costly to the other guys as well. So I think that's a pretty fair penalty. I don't think those guys. I don't think they're going to be arguing that. So it's a shame. It's a shame, as I said. Graham would not have been intending to make any contact at all. But I think that's a pretty fair penalty after what happened.
Absolutely. The team manager of Team Hard has been summoned to race control for an incident regarding their number 88 car of Benjamin Wallace, which has been in the mix. That was battling away earlier on, wasn't it, with David Patterson, I think, in the other Ginetta. And unfortunately, some sort of incident somewhere along the line means that they are being summoned to the headmaster's office. Right, good battle going on here. This is Rick Parfitt ahead of the McLaren. Yes, that's a change of 5th position then. The Bentley up into 5th. Of course, it's not actually 5th, if you see what I mean. That's because of other people pitting, but it is ahead on the same strategy at the moment as the McLaren. The Lamborghini behind, though, that has made its first pit stop, and so that car that's carving its way through, that was being driven by Sam Dahan early on, it's now Johnny Cocker, the pro driver, who is at the wheel of the second of the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis. Well, actually the first of the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis, because that's the car that's been the most impressive so far in this race. Oh dear, short on the inside there of the 501 car of Graham Johnson. and picks his way through. We've got another one of the Aston Martins that's made it pit stop that's in there as well, which I think, let me just see, yes it is, isn't it? That car has stopped, I think. The car, hang on, bear with me 1 second. Yes, that is the 17 car that has made its pit stop, so Marco Sorensen is now in it, so that car not on the same strategy as the McLaren in front of it. It is a lap behind, but with the pro driver now on board. It's Johnny Cocker there around the outside of Rick Parfitt. Again, not for position at the moment, but the Lamborghini going quicker than the Bentley, and once the Bentley pits, that will all show up on the timing screens with the gaps between them. Another 10-second stop-go penalty now for car number, and that's the same one, isn't it? 47, beg your pardon. Graham Davison hasn't served it yet, so the message will stay on the screen until it does so. So Ricardo Sanchez leads the way, Richard Leary second, Mark Farmer third, Flick Hay fourth, and Rick Parfitt is fifth. Sean Balfe pitted that time, so the top 5 cars have not yet stopped. Pretty much everybody else has. Well, as the pit lane starts to get busier and busier, it's time now to head back down to the man who's right at the centre of all of the action down there, and I believe that Andy J has caught up with Finlay Hutchison.
That's right, yeah, Finlay, you're looking very hot. How does it feel out there?
Great, I cannot complain. Balance of the car is absolutely perfect, and as you can see there, it's a really good car to race in just now. I struggled from the start and messed it up a bit, but luckily I managed to recover it and get back into the lead from 4th. I think that was quite a good stint from me, and now we've just got to wait and see what Daniel can do.
Were you feeling the pressure with a pole start?
It's my first time in a GT car starting off the front row in a rolling start, so it was different, but it was good fun. I just didn't manage to get off the line very well, unfortunately, but I managed to recover it. So.
You made up for it, and of course we know that you have to go back out in the car as well. What happens to you now? How long have you got time to sort of get some more water on and just switch off, or are you going to be focused intently on the race? What do you do in this break?
I tried to switch off while keeping focus in the race, have some fruit and a bottle of water, and then be ready to go for the next one.
Rock and roll, good stuff. Thanks,
you.
mate. Nice one. Good luck.
Thank you very much there, Andy. So that is the car that Finlay was driving earlier on, the number 10 car. He's now handed that over to Daniel Mackay. And there, Rick Parfitt moves out of the way of Marco Sorensen. Rick, though, he seems quite happy in the car, but of course, he has little choice but to stay in the car. Ah, is that Seb Morris? I think that is Seb Morris. But the point I was about to make is that we were speculating, weren't we, pre-race, Ollie, that maybe Rick Parfitt might have no choice but to do a double stint at the start of the race, because we didn't know what time his teammate Seb Morris, who remember has been called up at the last second after Ryan Ratcliffe fell ill overnight. We didn't know what time he'd be able to get here to Silverstone, but he is here just about in time for the first pit stop. So he's driven in from wherever he lives these days. He's arrived at the circuit, he's thrown his race suit and his helmet on, and now they're going to give him a Bentley Continental to play in and say, right, go on, drive the wheels off it. That can't be easy.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, we do get some last-minute calls sometimes, but that is taking it to an extreme. Hi, Seb. By the way, we've got a race this afternoon at Silverstone, 3-hour British GT race. I know you're probably sat at a barbecue in the sun somewhere, but can you grab your kit and head up here? I mean, that's awesome. It'll be so fun now to see how he gets on in the car as well.
Yeah, and it's fair to say Rick has done a good job. I know he had that spin, but given the pressure and the turmoil that the whole team must be going through, because their whole plan was up in the air. I mean, there was a potential only half an hour or so before the race that the car might not race at all. So Rick's done a really good job to get his head together, take a deep breath, and go out there and do the job that we know he can do.
And it's great for everyone, British GT, all the teams as well that have had to agree to this, because obviously Seb's not turned a wheel in free practice or anything this weekend. So it's great that everyone's kind of come together and said, yeah, we want that car on the grid. This is, you know, it's proper sort of sporting spirit, really. Seb's got experience in the car. He's driven the car before. It's not as though they're just throwing anyone in, you know, someone that found in the grandstand or something. So, you know, Seb knows his car really well. He knows the circuit really well and everything. So it's great that everyone's sort of come together to get that car out on track today, because it would have been a real shame to lose it.
Yeah, absolutely, and let's hope they can get it to the finish and make all of the hard work worthwhile. We've got another team manager being summoned to race control now. It's car number 53, which is this is the Ultratech Racing Team RJN car, the Nissan that was being driven by Calvin Fletcher. So apparently the general consensus is that that was more Kelvin's fault than it was John Fagg's fault, but we shall see what the official decision is that's made later on. But we have a change there on track, not for position. That was Phil Keane going past the number 1 car of Rick Parfit, of course. Slow Mercedes now, unfortunately. 77 this is. No, this is a car that's been in the gravel, isn't it? Mark Murphy, remember, we saw him in the gravel trap. He was tangled up with Callum McLeod, wasn't he, in the Bentley? So they've got the Mercedes back out there. McLeod, though, is still listed as being off track, so it looks as though the Bentley's race is done, but Mercedes has been able to limp its way, or is limping its way, back to the pit lane, several laps down, of course, but at least Mark Murphy can get the car back, and once it's fixed, hand over to Michael Broadhurst. Well, here is Rick Parfit making his way down towards Vale and Club, and we've been documenting an awful lot about the story that's been going on behind the scenes. With more news on that, and with the man himself, the man of the moment, Seb Morris, is Andy J.
Yes, it's a bit of an exclusive for us. Seb, you've just made it. How are you feeling?
A bit worn out. Obviously, I stuck to the speed limit the whole way, but I got here 5 minutes ago, so straight in the car and go do my job.
I mean, this is putting the band back together in a way, isn't it?
Indeed, yeah, we've got the dream team back together, and it's good to help out whenever I can, but I think I'm going now.
Okay, good luck.
Well, there we go. That was time to go. Do you know what? I think Rick Parfit might be on his way to the pit lane this time. That was Seb Morris. Great of him to talk to us, though. I suppose his head's not going to be quite in the right space anyway, so what harm can he do sticking a microphone in front of him just before he goes and jumps in the car? So once Rick Parfit pits, there will be, I believe, 5 GT3 cars that have not yet stopped. Make that 4 because Richard Neary has just brought the Roll Centre Racing Mercedes in to hand over. So that car will now go into the hands of Adam Christodoulou. In does come Rick Parfit, and the car that won this race last year with this driver lineup, not the driver lineup they were supposed to have this weekend, but that's the way it works out sometimes. This drive lineup in this very car won this race last year and won the championship last year as well. So as long as Seb Morris can get himself up to speed relatively quickly, this is definitely a car that will be in contention in just over 2 hours' time. Out jumps Rick, and the refuelling process now gets underway. Nothing else can be done to the car whilst the fuel is going in. There's a team member on hand with a fire extinguisher just in case anything were to go wrong. And once the fuel is in, they will send the car back on its way. Back out goes one of the HHC Ginettas. That's running within the GT4 class. Once all the pit stops are done, we'll run you down the order in both GT3 and GT4 because, of course, at the moment it's all a bit mixed up. But this, thus far, at least looks like a good pit stop. Refuelling is done. And talk us through a driver change on it, because it's an awful lot harder than it looks. It's not easy to get in and out of one of these things, is it?
It's not, no. It's anyone that's sort of not a racing driver that's tried climbing in a GT car knows how difficult it is. You've got roll cages and everything in there. The seat's very high on the side. It's not like a comfortable road car seat. I mean, it's really comfortable, but it's obviously very protective as well. So it comes right up the sides to hold you in. In championships where we haven't got a minimum pit stop time, it's such an important part of the pit stop and driver change. So really, we've got to be able to practice it enough that we can do a driver change, you know, one driver out, one driver in, seatbelts done and everything in about 15 to 20 seconds. So really quick, and it's a pretty slick operation that we have to practice. And no drivers really, especially if you're on a hot race weekend somewhere, you've just got out of the car and then your engineer says, right, you need to practice driver change, and all you want to do is get out your sweaty kit. And it's not a pleasant experience practicing driver changes, but it's such an important part of the weekend for us.
15 seconds is astonishing. It'd take me 15 seconds to work out how to open the door. I think that's to get it down to that sort of time can make all the difference. But we did see there that once the drive change had been done, Seb was in, he was strapped in, the door was closed, and you expect the car to roar off, but of course he has to sit there and wait until the minimum drive time, the minimum pit stop time is done. And that is why, if you're new to British GT racing, there is a minimum pit stop time. It's not just in, out as quick as you can to try and balance it. It's also to try and make it safer, because as you all know well, Ollie, sometimes when there isn't a minimum pit stop time, the driver getting taken out of the car gets treated a little bit roughly, don't they? Get thrown out into the middle of the pit lane, and it can cause all sorts of trouble. So I think minimum pit stop times serve their purpose, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So, as we watch the number 42 BMW making its way back out onto the Wellington straight, we can hand back down, I believe, to Andy J in the pit lane. He's still at the Team Park Racing garage, but this time he's talking to Rick Parfit.
Yes, thank you, Andy. I've got Rick Parfitt Jr. here, and I'll tell you what, Rick, I don't know what must be going through your head right now. Why don't you tell us?
Oh, well, it's a shame. I mean, I wasn't taking any big risks. You know, I knew I had an hour in the car, and I was just picking him off one by one, exactly as I wanted to do, and came up against a Hahn, had the run on him, and he made the most aggressive move I think I've ever seen in British GT. I mean, it wasn't a lean, it was a flat-out left turn, blatant, basically to try and take me off. It wasn't in any way a block. It was a turn in. That sort of driving is just not tolerated in this series. You know, you're allowed to block, you can move across gradually, but you can't literally do virtually full lock and turn into a competitor. So I avoided it, and unfortunately, my tyres are onto. There's a lot of rubber offline. So I picked up a lot of that, and then coming into the next corner, obviously I was still pushing and just didn't have the grip, and the car just swapped ends on me. But after that, I got my head down. I was the fastest car on circuit. Bentley have got a fantastic car here. Team Parker put a really great car under me, and I caught everyone up past Lee. I was right on the back of Balfe, and but I didn't want to take any more risks, quite frankly. So I thought, let's see how the race pans out. And we obviously had to leave me long because, sadly, Ryan is not well enough to race today, and my heart goes out to him. And I've just got to say thank you to his family, because they said they would still put the money up for Seb to race. And thank you to the British GT for allowing a car to be on the grid, because for me it's so tough every year to find sponsorship to come, and so to have everyone here and not put on a show is devastating and obviously hugely damaging to my budget. And so it was lovely, and I thank the other teams for allowing it as well. I'm sure they're happy I had the spin now, but you know, it's a long race and we'd like to get into the top 5 if we can. It might be out of reach, but you know, it's just now to show how quick we can go and put on a good show for Team Parker and Bentley. But thanks to the Ratcliffes, they're an amazing family, and I hope Ryan feels a lot better soon.
Thanks, mate. Best of luck. Thank you.
Well, do you know what? He pours his heart and soul into his racing, does Rick Parfitt, and it wouldn't be the same without him. Race leader is in, though, Ricardo Sanchez, to hand over then to Struan Moore. And remember, this car has to spend an extra 10 seconds in the pit lane as well, because it is a Silver Cup car, so they had more than a 10-second lead over the chasing pack, so it shouldn't lose them the lead. But will Struan Moore be as quick as the pro drivers? Because although we were saying that Ricardo Sanchez arguably had an advantage over the AM drivers, how does Struan tee up against some of the pro drivers that are in the other cars?
It'll be interesting to see, as you say. The silver category is has quite a variety of driving abilities in it. You've got some pro drivers that are just a little bit inexperienced or haven't got anything on their CV like a Le Mans win or something like that to be upgraded to gold. Then you've also got some AM drivers that have been upgraded from bronze to silver. So the silver category is has quite a sort of variety of abilities and pace in it. So it will be really interesting to see how Struan gets on compared to the other pros that are on track. They've got a nice little lead at the moment.
Yeah, they have. We'll see how that shakes out as they complete the next lap. In has also come Mark Farmer, who had inherited the lead as a result of the Nissan pitting, which means there's only one car that hasn't yet pitted from GT3, and that's the number 75 car of Flick Haig. Or has it? No, it has pitted, but interestingly, Flick is showing as still being in the car, so she is the only driver, it would seem, in GT3 at least, doing a double stint. Now, we've got a few penalties being dished out here. Car number 88 has been given a drive-through penalty. That is the Ginetta of Ben Wallace and Alex Reed, run by Team Hard. We heard that team manager had been summoned to race control earlier on. Car number 53, though, and this is the Nissan that was being driven by Calvin Fletcher, remember, had that contact with Charlie Flagg, a 2-minute stop-go penalty. So not only did they think that that was Calvin's fault, they really thought that was Calvin's fault, and they've given him quite a substantial penalty. That is going to ruin their race. 2 minutes, well, they're going to lose a lap near enough from that, and of course they can't count that as one of their mandatory pit stops. There's Mark Farmer, well, that's not Mark Farmer anymore, of course, it is now, excuse me, it's now Nicky Team who is at the wheel of the number 11 car, and here is the car that was leading. So this is going to be our first gauge of what the sort of gap is between the top two cars after they have made their pit stops. Yelmer Berman is showing as being in third position, although I think that might be a quirk of the timing system. We'll give it another lap to shake out, but we can see visually here how close the Nissan and the Aston Martin will be. The Nissan is going to go through, I think, because because the Aston Martin is still sat there. Yes, there goes Struan Moore. So Struan Moore gets his way back into the lead of the race. And Nicky Team will come back out, presumably, in second place. Yes, Elmer Berman is now slipping down the order because, of course, that car had just pitted. That was one of the other GT3 cars that hadn't yet made its stop. So everyone has now stopped throughout GT3 and GT4, so we should, in a lap or so, be able to give you a complete rundown of the order, as we are already 2 hours and 5 minutes in. There goes Nicky Team, rejoins just in front of Flick Hayes. So actually Nicky has fallen quite some way down the order. It looks as though Marco Sorensen has come through in second. Yes, he has. You can see there, the Aston Martin in the background is second place. The Lamborghini then of Johnny Cocker is third, ahead of the other Lamborghini of... well, now it's saying still John Minshaw in that car. I did see a note on the timing screen earlier on saying that the team needed to confirm the ID of that driver. Our timing screen is saying that John Minshaw is still in the number 33 car, which would possibly make sense. 72 has stopped at the side of the road. That is another one of the GT4 McLarens. It's the Track Club car, which was started by Adam Ballon, which I seem to remember had a puncture earlier on. Ewan Hankey, Ewan Hankey, there we go, is now in that machine. Ian Logie watching on from the pit lane. Now he's got his helmet on. Does that mean that Callum McLeod has rejoined the circuit? It has. Callum McLeod, finally, he lost 5 laps in the process, but they have got the number 17 Park Racing Bentley back out of the gravel trap, and so they're going to bring it in for Callum to take over. But by and large, we appear to have the pro drivers in the cars.
Interestingly, Johnny Adams just come up on the screen as being in the number 75 Aston. So that's and he's just done the fastest lap of the race overall at 2 minute .5. So that's really cool. That's nearly qualifying pace. Not only second off what he did in qualifying, I think.
Let's see. Pole position was only a let's see what the shuffling through the papers now to find the right piece. There we go. So the quickest time we saw in qualifying was set by Adam Christodoulou. It was 1:59.0, so yeah, second and a half off outright pole. But you're right, Johnny Adam, what was his lap time in qualifying yesterday?
59.5.
Well, there we go.
So there we go,
yeah,
second off what he did in qualifying, with a full tank of fuel in the car as well. You know, he'll be running heavy on fuel. I think that's pretty impressive pace straight out the box there. So it'll be interesting to see what Johnny Adams can do now.
Yes, we have, by the way, had our change of lead. Marco Sorensen has got himself ahead of Struan Moore. So that is sort of answering our question we were asking earlier on about how Struan would match up to the pro drivers, but with a silver-silver combo, it's more about consistency, isn't it? Both drivers should be on a similar playing field. They should run at a consistent pace throughout the entire duration of the race, whereas the Pro-Am cars, sometimes they're going quickly, sometimes they're not going quickly. And it's going to be fascinating to see how that one boils down at the end of the race today. You see the Nissan, it is now down to second position. Phil Keane is now showing as being in the 33 car, so we have now got, I can confirm, all of our pro drivers in the cars. And there is Phil himself in the green and red number 33 Demon Tweaks Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. In behind, his teammate, Johnny Cocker, in the 69 car. So the Lamborghinis that neither of them were particularly on the pace at the start of the race. Certainly John Minshaw seems to be struggling in his car, but through the course of the pit stop, they've used the strategy well to get themselves both up the order, to have both the Barwell cars third and fourth. That is good strategy and a perfect use of it.
Yeah, Barwell did something really clever with the strategy here. Was it last 2 years ago, yes, wasn't it? When they pitted really early in the race and then ended up winning the race. So, and I actually raced with Barwell. I raced with Barwell for a couple of years in a BMW Z4 GT3 in the Blancpain series, and they are really clever guys there. You've got Mark Lemmer, who runs a team. Mark's got a lot of experience racing himself as well as running a team. And they do, sometimes they make some decisions you think, I wonder what we're doing here. And as a driver, driving for them, you can't just get on with it. You know, you just going to pedal the car around and see where we end up. And then at the end of the race, you really seem to, it all sort of pans out and you see exactly what you've got. And they do make some really good decisions sometimes, the Barwell team.
How involved as a driver do you tend to get in the strategy process, or do you just say, look, that's your business, I'll get in the car when you tell me to and I'll get out of it when you tell me to?
Kind of, yes. Obviously we're in this, you know, as a driver you're in the strategy meetings and stuff like that, and you do have a say in the strategy and what you prefer to do. But ultimately, you know, the team are the ones that make the plan. Then once you're on track, you don't really know what's going on with everyone else and who's pitting when and stuff like that. And we have sort of, this is our plan for the race. But then, as we've seen, someone gives you a bit of a tap or whatever, or you get a puncture, and then that's all gone out the window anyway. And it's right now, that's when the experience, the top teams really have to think on their feet, you know, and just make a quick decision that's going to make the best of the situation that you've got. And in that situation as a driver, you just do what you're told. Just keep quiet, pedal it around as fast as you can, and do exactly what you're told to do.
Racing drivers doing what they're told, who'd have thought it? So this is the GT4 battle going on. This is the, I promised you I'd give you the order in GT4, so I will now deliver on that promise. The number 10 machine, we believe, is leading in GT4, which is the car that Finley Hutchison was driving earlier on, and has handed over now to Daniel Mackay. Second place in GT4 is the number 5 car, it's Jordan Albert now on board, and then 61 in third place. The battle we're watching here is the one between the 42 BMW and the 62 Aston Martin. There has been a change of position here, so Ben Tuck has got himself into 4th position at the expense of Matt Nicol-Jones. So that position changed hands over at Vale that time around, I think. BMW up ahead of Aston Martin. These two cars have been locked together all race long, even with the first set of drivers that were in the cars, and they are locked together also now. But the number 10 McLaren enjoys about a 15-second lead over the number 5 Tolman car of Jordan Albert. So it is a McLaren 1-2. But yeah, in fact, there is car number 10, there is our class leader, and that car had slipped back a bit initially, but benefiting from the fact that it was racing against some Silver Cup cars, so they've had to spend a bit longer in the pit lane anyway, and now that car is right out in front of the rest of the field. But will it be able to stay there? More team managers, being summoned to race control, 3 of them in fact, race managers of cars 66, 34 and 26. So 26 is the Ultimate Speed and Michael Brown run Aston Martin in GT3. 66 and 34 are GT4 cars. 34 car is another Team Hard car, unfortunately. That's the Callum Hawkins, Rowan Jordan Still car. 66 was the Nick Jones and Scott Mulvey Mercedes from Team Parker Racing, so that's interesting. That car has been struggling a little bit for pace here this weekend, but it has now potentially got itself into a spot of bother as far as the clerk of course is concerned. There's the number 5 McLaren running in second place, Jordan Albert, second place in GT4 that is. He has just under a 5-second lead over Jan Jonk in the number 61 car. That's the car that started on the outside of row 1 in GT4, the Academy Motorsport Aston Martin. So GT4 has now spaced itself out. Car 88 has been given a 1.5-second stop-go penalty meanwhile, and that is the car that's been in all sorts of strife this weekend, the Ben Wallace and Alex Reid Ginetta. Meanwhile, we can head back down to the pit lane with Andy J.
Yes, well, I promised you when we were roaming around the grid that there were celebrities aplenty that have come down to witness the Silverstone 500, and I'm thrilled to say I found my buddy Drew Pritchard here, of course from Salvage Hunters, amongst many other things. Drew, how are you doing?
Fantastic. What a day down here in the Parker grid, basically with the Bentley boys and you. It's the place to be, the best British brand right here.
Love it. Now, Drew, one of the things that we were talking about in the build-up to the race is the fact that as well as obviously competing for the championship and racing to win at Silverstone in the 500, there's this amazing trophy, the RAC trophy, back in circulation since 1932. It was last won last year, and they kind of kept it as tradition from now on. Just what would that mean? Can you help me out with values and things?
Value, honestly, priceless. I mean, its monetary value really is so unimportant. Its historic value in the motor racing world is massive. In the 1930s, real racing, wheel to wheel, the cars were just starting to come really quick, Alpha 8Cs, all that sort of stuff coming through. But for them to resurrect that trophy, and it would be great to see a Bentley win it, wouldn't it? It would be great to see a British team, a Bentley team win it.
I have to stay completely impartial on that front. It would be great to see anyone win it. It would be wonderful. But of course, you're absolutely right. I mean, back in the 1930s, they were seeing speeds of around 130 miles an hour. Yeah. We know these guys flat out can do about 175.
See, I mean, we haven't moved on so much, have we? What is it, 85 years, 90 years? And we're only like 40 miles an hour more. But now we've got all the technology and all the safety. These guys are going around in cloth caps, you know? there was no safety involved at all, real racing. And I'll just come and watch any sort of racing, really, but to hear this lot howl through here is really quite astonishing. And it's so close.
I mean, you're no stranger to racing yourself. You love a race, but I don't think we could tempt you out in one of these, could we?
No. I have my full racing driver's licence now. I've been racing for a few years, raced all sorts of stuff. There's no way you get me out there in one of these. They're just too quick, out of my league.
Fair enough, mate. Well, thank you for talking to us. Enjoy the rest of the action.
Will do.
Back to you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andy. It's getting a bit confusing with two Andys involved, isn't it? But yes, thanks, Andy J. down in the pit lane. Excuse me. Yes, the race being led by Marco Sorensen at the moment. This is the fight for third place. Ollie, off air just now, was reminding me of the fact that as with all British GT races, there are pit stop success penalties. The podium finishers from the previous race, basically in both classes, have to spend a bit of extra time in the pit lane at the next race. However, because this is a race that has multiple pit stops, and it's the only race of the year that has multiple pit stops, they don't have to spend that extra time in the pit lane at every stop. It is only the last pit stop at which they have to serve that penalty. So the car that's leading at the moment, Marco Sorensen, will have to spend an extra 20 seconds in the pit lane at its final pit stop of the day. The Beach D number 99 car spends an extra 15 seconds in the pit lane, and the number 11 car, which is down in 6th place with Nicky Thiem at the wheel at the moment, spends an extra 10 seconds at the wheel. In GT4, it's the 42 BMW that has the 20-second penalty. The number 5 McLaren has a 15-second penalty, and the 62 Aston Martin has the 10 seconds. So that is all something to watch out for a bit later on. Right now, though, we've got a sensational four-way fight on here for second place in the race. Johnny Cocker looking up the inside there of Struan Moore down towards Abbey. We've got Phil Keane going right round the outside as well. What a move that was from Phil Keane to take third place away from his teammate, and now he goes on the attack to try and get second place away from Struan Moore. Remember, Struan, the silver driver. Adam Christodoulou also picks the pocket there of the other Marwell Motorsport Lamborghini, which unfortunately lost out rather in all of that. It looked as though Johnny Cocker was the one that about to gain a place, and in the end he loses two. He's back up the inside there, Christodoulou down through Aintree. Can't quite make it stick there, but Phil Keane, what a move that was, Ollie, round the outside of Abbey, and to add to the pressure, it was his teammate that he was side by side with.
Amazing, wasn't it? Amazing. And you kind of think, in that position, you're like, obviously Phil was completely committed there, but at the same time you do not want to cause an accident with your teammates. It doesn't go down well at all, so it was a really, really good move from Phil. And yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens here actually, because as you can see, Struan's obviously being in the silver car is now, you know, got these three pros tucked up right behind him at the moment, doing a really good job of keeping them there as well. So, you know, the pressure, it's hard to describe the feeling that, you know, or describe what Struan's going to be feeling at the moment. The pressure is massive, especially when you've got those guys behind you as well, you know, especially you've got Phil Keane and Adam Christo, who have so much experience, and Johnny Cocker does as well, you know, and Johnny's done a lot of mileage in this car over the last sort of 6 or 8 months, so they're all going to be really quick, they're all going to be pretty aggressive, so it'll be, you know, Struan's got a lot of pressure on him at the moment. He's doing a mega job of keeping them there.
Yeah, Nicky Thiem also closing in on this group. Remember, he has the fastest lap of the race. There he goes, the blue number 11, Aston Martin, down in 6th. So we've got 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th place cars absolutely nose to tail now. What a delight this is. Nissan, Lamborghini, Mercedes, Lamborghini and Aston Martin all doing battle for podium positions here, with still over half the race to go, need I remind you. Marco Sorensen had built up a 7.6 second lead over this lot at the start of the previous lap, but Struan Moore's lap times hadn't been bad. He'd been more or less matching the cars around him until they got right on his tail and he had to start defending, and all of a sudden the lap time that was 3.5 seconds slower than the race lead last time around, and that's done an awful lot of damage as far as the lead gap is concerned. But Struan's pace up to that point had been very impressive. Phil Keane then looking to find a way through. But Adam Christodoulou, we know how quick he is as well, and that Roll Centre Racing Mercedes is a potential race winner. They're all potential race winners though, that's the thing, isn't it? It makes it almost impossible to predict who's going to be on the top step of the podium come the end of the race. But that car has had a few little dramas as the season has gone on. The second of the Mercedes, side by side there for second place. Phil Keane looking up the inside, and he might have just got this one done now. So they come out of the field corner. He's alongside the Nissan of Struan Moore, which we know is quicker in a straight line though, so he's going to fight back if he can down towards Cop's corner. He's on the outside line though. He's probably better served just letting Phil go, but the trouble is you let one go and you can open the floodgates, everyone else can come charging through. The Barwell squad enjoying seeing that up on the screens, and now the Roll Centre squad hoping to enjoy similar celebrations as Adam Christodoulou finds way through. He can't quite do it into Beckett's. At every corner now that he spends battling away with Strew and Moore, Phil Keane is getting ever further in front of him.
And that's all that Adam's going to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Adam will be thinking, don't let him go, don't let him go. Adam will be wanting to follow Phil as quickly as he can here. He'll be wanting to get past Strew as quick as he can. And as you just mentioned a moment ago, you've got Nicky Team hunting them down as well. And Nicky Team takes no prisoners in a battle like this. You know, he will be wanting to get through these guys as quick as they can. So Adam will have that in his mirrors. He'll be obviously seeing Phil starting to pull away here. Be interesting to see what sort of middle sector Phil Keane does here now that he's got some clean air, because it looks as though it's quick.
Change for third there as well, so finally Christodoulou's got through, but yeah, you can see the way that Phil Keane has rocketed away from them. What does his sector time look like?
It's 6/10 he's pulled in the middle sector there compared to Adam, so that's, you know, and as we said earlier, the pros are so close that it's hard to, you know, 6/10 a lot of time to lose in one sector, so Adam's going to obviously get his head down now and try and chase him down.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what he can do, and of course, let's see what Johnny Cocker and Nicky Team can do. Anytime Nicky Team arrives on your tail, then that is cause for concern, because we know that he is a great hunter and he's great at working his way through the field meticulously. He's aggressive when he needs to be, and this could be an aggressive move. He goes right around the outside of Brooklands. He's going to try and box Johnny Cocker in on the inside line. Cocker sideways and loses it. Oh, Johnny Cocker. That is not something you see very often. He just got on the curb on the inside line, and around she went, and Johnny Cocker, well, let's hope that he gets the car pointing the right way. I can tell you now, that is not the Barwell squad with the thumbs up. They won't be too pleased to see that. Yeah, that was a bit of a shame for Johnny. Has he been able to get the car started? That now becomes the question. He's not yet crossed the start-finish line. Now he does, about 4.6 seconds behind this group. In fact, he's lost the position to Johnny Adam as well. So Johnny Adam has managed to pick his way through into 6th. Johnny Cocker down to 6th, just ahead of Darren Turner. So now Nicky Team is the man applying the pressure to Strew and Moore, and he will be keen to get on with this because he can see Phil Keane and Adam Christodoulou. Look at the gap that they've been able to pull. Phil Keane's last lap at 2:01.0, fastest man on the track, no, second fastest man on the track. He was a tenth or so slower than Johnny Adam, who you could just catch a glimpse of in the background there, coming down the Hanger Straight. But Nicky, where does he make this move? Because he knows he's quicker than Strew, and he'll want to do it at the first possible opportunity, but he'll want to do it somewhere it's sensible as well. He's well aware of the fact we've still got over half the race to go. But where do you think this Aston Martin might be able to find a way through?
Looks as though he's got a bit of a run here, doesn't it? But it's just so hard to pass into such a quick corner unless you're really alongside. It's just that corner in a GT3 car is just a gentle rub on the brake, if anything, you know, and a bit of a lift, and it's so fast, so it's almost impossible to pass there unless you've really got to run. But then a GT4 car gets in the mix like that, and it can really shake things up. And it looks as though he's got the run out of here down towards Brooklands as well now. So
just about find through on the inside, and the fact that Strew and Moore gets two wheels on the grass will help, and so Nicky does find a way through, but that was tense stuff there with the back marker of James Holder in the way. 144 Aston Martin GT4 car that was. So Nicky Team, that puts him into 4th position now. Here's a replay of what happened to Johnny Cocker. What do you reckon happened here?
It looked as though Johnny was caught out of position a little bit there. It felt a little bit bad for him on the entry, really, because he couldn't go in deep because obviously of going up the back of Strew. I think it was Strew and Moore who was in front of him at the time, wasn't it? So he couldn't go in deep on the brakes. He had Nicky around the outside of him. I guess thought Nicky was going to close the door more than he did, but actually Nicky gave him quite a lot of room. And it looks as though Johnny's just hit the sort of the orange sausage curves on the apex there, and that's just knocked his balance and knocked the rear of the car around. Really unfortunate for him there.
Yeah, the slightest bump in the road can unsettle a high-performance GT3 car, so start driving over those severe curbs and it can really do some damage, can't it?
Yeah, you're on the limit of the grip everywhere, especially when you've got a car around the outside of you as well. You know, Johnny would have been pushing as hard as he could mid-corner there. So, as you say, a little bump like that in the road and it can really unsettle the car. And this is the number 24 Nissan in the pits then, isn't it, for another driver change?
Yeah, Struan Moore to hand back over, presumably, to Ricardo Sanchez. So they were one of the last cars to stop at the first set of pit stops. They're now one of the first cars to stop. In fact, they are the first GT3 car to make their second pit stop, so that's interesting. Back with GT4 though, and we've got the number 5 McLaren there of Jordan Albert. He's running in second place in class, and he's been caught now by Jan Jonk in the number 61 machine, the Aston Martin run by Academy Motorsport, one of the 2 Academy Motorsport cars. The other one is running 5th in class with Matt Nicol-Jones at the wheel. And so this was a fairly sizable gap after the pit stops, and gradually Jan has been able to close it down and close in to the point that now he's well and truly within striking range of the McLaren. So the gap between the leaders in GT4, as you saw there, 20 odd seconds, just over 20 seconds that the number 10 machine has been able to pull away. That is Dan McKay in that car, remember, for this stint. Got Jelmer Berman carving his way through in the Mercedes as well, so this just means that you have to put this battle on ice. But it's true, isn't it, sometimes that we always mention, and you alluded to this I think a little bit earlier on, we always talk about the GT3 cars getting held up in the GT4 traffic, but if you're Jan Jonk, you can try and use that to your advantage now and try and almost follow the GT3 car through, can't you?
Yeah, you can. It can put the car in front out of position, and it, you know, knock their momentum as well. And as we said earlier, the exits and stuff are so important in GT4 cars. So you only need an exit of your competitor compromised by one of the GT3 cars, and you can massively capitalise on that as well. But it does, you know, this looks sort of hotting up this battle here, doesn't it? With, you know, Jordan Albert's doing another one of McLaren's development drivers on the young driver development program. He's really like maturing well. You know, he's very clever in the races. He really thinks about what he's doing. He's been quick through his junior career in anything he's got in, whether it's a single seater, a GT car, anything he gets in, he gets it round quickly. You know, he's got a lot of natural ability, and on the McLaren driver development program, they've just sort of refined that ability and helped him out of the car as well. And as we can see here, he's doing a really good job.
Yeah, he really is, isn't he? So back down in towards Brooklands they go. We can head down to the pit lane, I believe, though, and speak to Struan Moore, who didn't spend an awfully long time in that Nissan, and had a very eventful stint, Andy.
An eventful stint is one way of putting it. I know you were questioning why they were the first of the GT3 teams to come in for another pit stop. Well, Struan, you can reveal the reason. It was the seat.
Yeah, the seat. So they came out of the pits all fine, and then the seat went back quite a lot, and I couldn't reach the pedals, and then it got worse. But it's working now. Ricardo just got in, it's clicked into place, but it unclipped for me, and I went straight back in the seat. So my legs were completely stretched out. I couldn't reach the pedals. I couldn't, I said to Jeff, you know, we're going to have to, my engineer, we're going to have to box as soon as possible because I can't reach the pedals. So that was a really tough stint, just gutted to be honest. I don't know where we are now in the race, but I couldn't keep him behind. I couldn't brake. I couldn't brake as hard as I wanted to. I was braking, but not as hard as I wanted to. So it was a shame.
You're currently running in 10th. There's plenty of time left to make it up. But of course, you have now used one of your pit stops. I mean, I thought this was a fascinating tactic, but actually, no, it was essential.
Yeah, the seat's absolutely fine now. It's just, you know, it wasn't. I could drive, but I couldn't drive absolutely how I wanted to. So it was just a stressful stint. One of them, just unlucky. Can't believe it, to be honest. It was all going so well, and then the seat problem. So it is what it is.
Time to fix it though, mate, and maybe get some platforms for the shoes.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks.
All right, cheers.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks very much, Andy. Well, that's a new one on me. You don't hear about that happening all that often, do you?
No, you don't, and it makes this drive look even more impressive. You know, you don't want Phil Keane, Adam Christo, and Nicky T behind you when you can't reach the pedals. So that was makes this drive look even more impressive. That will obviously explain his, you know, the pace as well. That. I thought that he did a really good job considering he couldn't reach pedals. So, yeah, it's a horrible feeling. You want to be comfortable in the car. And obviously, these cars are so physical to drive as well. So it just makes it that much harder when you're not comfortable. You've got to be comfortable. You've got to be strapped in tight. And you have to hit the brake pedal with about, in a GT3 car, about 140 bar of pressure. So it's as hard as you can physically hit it. You know, it's a heavy braking zone. You're sort of grabbing onto the steering wheel and hitting the brake pedal as hard as you physically can. So if you're not close enough, you just haven't got that strength in your leg to be able to brake hard enough, and that just costs you so much time.
I think that's something that gets lost often if you've never actually driven a racing car, particularly a racing car, a proper sort of high-tech GT3 racing car such as this, just how physical it is, because we all drive our cars down the M6, you know, and, on a long drive, and we sit there one-handed listening to the radio, you know, nice and peaceful. If anything, we get bored, don't we, after a while? There's no chance of getting bored inside one of these things because it is full on all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, not at all. I actually took my girlfriend out in the passenger seat of a 650 GT3 car once, a McLaren 650 GT3 car, and it was hilarious. I just laughed the whole way around. Every time I hit the brake pedal, her head was nearly up on the dash. You know, I'm glad she had a hands device on, but it was hilarious. And then she got out, she just couldn't believe, you know, when I was sort of growing up through school and everything, and my mates were always like, "Why have you got to go to the gym? I drive the car," and I don't go to the gym. But until you experience it, you just don't realise how physical these cars are to drive.
No, absolutely. It's why all professional racing drivers have to be at peak physical fitness throughout the entirety of their career. Good to see this car back out on track. That's the number 7 Bentley of Team Parker Racing. It was being driven by Callum McLeod when it collided with another car up at Abbey. That incident is being investigated, I believe, and we'll get further news on that as we get it. But the car is back out there, appears to be relatively undamaged, which is good news. So Callum has handed back over to Ian Logie now, who started the race and did such a good job in that opening stint, running in 3rd place when he handed over, or 4th place I think it was, when he handed over to Callum. And Callum was lighting up the timing screens, had just set the fastest lap of the race before that all went wrong up at Abbey. Well, we are now into the second half of this race. Would you believe it's flown by the first hour and a half of the Silverstone 500, and let's just refresh our memories as to what happened in the first half. Well, it was a very busy grid indeed that soon cleared to allow us to go racing for the RAC trophy here at Silverstone, and they were 5 abreast back in the GT4 ranks. And ahead of the field though, Ricardo Sanchez set sail, pulled out by the time he handed over the car to Struan Moore, almost a 20-second lead at the head of the field. Ian Logie was running well in 3rd place as well, as he was surrounded by Aston Martins, whilst Rick Parfitt had been carving his way through the order for this spin with dirty tyres up at Luffield. 44 Jaguar hit dramas early on, so too, in a big way, did Tom Canning in the Stellar Performance Toyota as he lost a wheel. Pit stops began fairly early for Team Parker Racing as they got Callum McLeod plugged into the car, whilst there was Aston Martin on Aston Martin contact, and the 47 car was later given a penalty for that. So too was the 53 Nissan for this contact that put Charlie Fagg's McLaren out of the race and into the gravel. Likewise in the gravel and in strife was the 77 Mercedes of Mark Murfitt. Then the rest of the field started coming in to hand over to the pro drivers, meaning that this car, being driven now by Marco Sorensen, got its way into the lead of the race shortly after the pit stops finished. It was a remarkable drive from Struan Moore, who appeared to be struggling for pace. He had cars attacking him from left, right and centre, and eventually he dived into the pit lane. It soon turned out though that it wasn't a lack of pace, it was actually an issue with the seat that meant he couldn't reach the pedals properly. Johnny Cocker had no excuse for that moment though, hitting the curbs down at Brooklands, a full 360-degree spin, which lost that car several positions. So Marco Sorensen then leads the way by 8.7 seconds over Phil Keane. The lap times have been fairly comparable between the two of them as of late. We might just be able to see in the background at some point the distance between the top two. There was the length of the Wellington Straight, essentially, between 1st and 2nd. Adam Christodoulou in 3rd place is staying more or less with Phil Keane. 4th place is the blue Aston Martin of Nicky Team, and 5th for Johnny Adam in the number 75 car that he shares with Flip Haig. So Johnny Adam, slowly but surely working his way up the order. He has consistently been one of the quicker cars out there. There's the 69 Barbell Lamborghini in the pit lane. That's Johnny Cocker handing back over to Sam DeHaan, and Johnny, after his spin, fortunately had dropped some way down the order. What of Seb Morris, I hear you ask? Well, he's running in 8th place now, and already is bang on the pace of everyone else. He set a personal best lap for 2 minutes 1.1. Okay, it's not the outright fastest lap, but it's only about 6/10 off. That, Ollie, is really remarkable stuff from Seb.
Really impressive, isn't it? And yeah, well, it's amazing just when you remind yourself that this morning he didn't even know he was racing today. So yeah, it's amazing, and it just shows obviously that his sort of natural feel and ability for the car, and kind of just jumps in and gets on with it. I know that we've said he's got a lot of experience in the Bentley, he's got a lot of experience at Silverstone as well, so he's going to be comfortable in it straight away, but it's still impressive. You've still got to get out there, switch himself on. He didn't exactly have the most normal sort of disciplined build up to a race like we all do. You all go and you're eating the right things, drinking the right things. He literally ran to the track. Remember, he would have had to go through signing on, he would have had to get his equipment checked and all that kind of stuff, and then run to the garage and get his stuff on to jump in the car. So it's really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff. But he's out there running 7th place now, actually, as a result of the pit stop for Johnny Cocker. 42 BMW goes through. That's the car that was started by Ben Green, is now being driven by Ben Tuck, and is running 4th place within GT4. Only 1.4 seconds though. Well, it was only 1.4 seconds behind Jan Joch. That's because Jan just pitted as well. So actually, our lead GT4 car is in the pits as well, I can see on the timing screen. That's the number 10 car. So that means that Jordan Albert has inherited temporarily the lead of the GT4 class. Through comes the 47 Aston Martin, coming back from its pit lane penalty, of course. And it has dropped several laps, in fact, hasn't it, after that incident earlier on. There is our GT4 leader. So Kimi Hutchison will be getting back on board, we assume, the number 10 McLaren, run by Keith Verschure, and see the silver badge on the back of the car, which denotes that it is a Silver Cup car. You'll see as well on a lot of the cars the Rainbow Pride flag as well. We're celebrating Pride Month here at British GT, and it is really nice to see a championship getting on board with such a progressive idea as that, and showing that motorsport is inclusive to everybody, and that's really nice to see that the vast majority of the GT paddock, not just the GT teams, but the support race paddocks as well, have got on board with that initiative too. There is our new GT4 leader. That is the number 5 car leading the way of started by Lewis Proctor. Now, of course, it's Jordan Albert on board, and they see the pride flag, in fact, on the tail end of that car. And he allows through the quicker GT3 McLaren of Rob Bell, who's running in 8th place at the moment. Oh no, that is Adam Christodoulou. Adam Christodoulou in dramas coming down the hanger straight. Now, is that a puncture, do you reckon, front right? I think it might be. Let's have a look. What do you think,
Ollie?
Ollie?
It doesn't it? Looks like something on the front right corner. So
yes, they are changing tyres at pit stops, but still, the track temperature is going up all the time, isn't it? And so it is possible that that could lead to some tyre dramas.
In the same place that we saw the puncture earlier on as well, through sort of Maggots and Beckett's, wasn't it? We hit the car up on the hanger straight last time as well. So I wonder whether there's something there on the track, maybe a bolt on a curb or something that's causing. That looks like actual damage. That's not a puncture, is it? That looks like some damage.
Yeah, the front right wheel is actually off the ground, isn't it? As if there is some sort of suspension or wheel damage. He's not even going to make it back to the pit lane, is he? He's heading into the... That looks like he's heading into the pit lane, but that's the international pit lane, so that's the wrong end of the track. So that is a real shame for Adam, though, who was running 3rd, of course, at that point, and 3rd on merit as well. One of the cars in front of him had pitted, but that car stops in the international pit lane entrance. He fires it back up again, but yeah, you can see the car crabbing a little bit. It's snatching this way and that as the damaged front right suspension twists and turns, but if he's heading into the international pit lane, he probably won't be able to get out the other end. So I think that is game over for a car that has really impressed me, actually, because we've been talking all year about the Elmer Vernon and Lee Mole Mercedes sort of doing really good stuff, leading the championship, of course. We forget sometimes, don't we, just how strong a team the Team ABBA Racing squad are, and Richard Neary put in a great stint at the start of the race. Adam Christodoulou was doing a really solid job, having worked his way past a few cars in 3rd. Sadly, his day is done, so another one bites the dust and falls by the wayside. Dear me, more dramas for the 47 Aston Martin. They've had a torrid time of it so far. That is Maxime Martin. Now, when was the last time you saw Maxime Martin pointing the wrong way? It doesn't happen that often, does it?
I was just thinking that, and I looked up at the screen just to double check that Maxime's in the car, because he's got so much experience in the GT3. It's very rare. Well, maybe we'll find out in a second.
You are right. It's Graham Davidson in the car, which is why it's surprising. Nothing on Graham Davidson, but it is very rare that Maxime Martin makes a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking that something might have. We might see something in a second. Let's see what happened there, but.
Yes, there were other cars around, but whether they were involved or just avoiding incidents, I don't know. 42 BMW is in, another one of the Silver Cup cars in GT4. So this is Ben Green getting back on board that machine, and the Century Motorsport squad who traditionally have run Ginettas, of course, in the past, but this year they've got a couple of these beautiful BMWs. Right, what do we think happened here? He was dicing away with Rob Bell. They're not on the same lap here, but they were in close quarters on him.
Yeah, and then he's up the inside into Luffields, so he's got track position here. Rob's nowhere near him. He just lost it on the exit on the power, didn't he? Just lost it on the exit, and actually Rob did really well to avoid him as well. And the problem is, when you've got a car coming backwards like that, you don't know which way they're going to go. So the sort of number one rule is you kind of aim for them and then hope they move out the way.
That's the theory anyway, isn't it? Well, down in pit lane we've got more action in GT4. One of the cars we just saw coming in was the 42 machine. Ben Green has jumped on board. Ben Tuck has just got out and was greeted almost immediately by Andy J.
That's right, I've been loitering and just watching the steam come off Ben's hair. It gives you an idea that it's incredibly hot in the car. How are you doing, Ben?
Yeah, as you say, a bit hot. No, really great stint. I think tyres were going off quite a lot at the end, so I was struggling to catch up with that Ginetta. But yeah, I would have liked to come in P3, but P4 after, we had a difficult start, and then Ben made up the places back to P5 before his stop. And then, I just tried to carry on his good work, and now he's back out in the car again.
How much are you updating strategy throughout the race? Because it seems like a lot of people think there's some slapdash choices going on right now, but actually this has been well thought out in advance, hasn't it?
Yeah, so I think, every team would be silly not to have a plan, first of all, but you've always got to have plan B, C, D, all the way through the alphabet.
How far down the alphabet are we here?
I don't want to give anything too much away, but maybe not quite plan A.
Right, understood. So we'll see you back out shortly?
Yeah.
Right, thanks mate.
Cheers.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. Ben Tuck wanders off to get a much-needed drink of water, I think. Got another car in the pit lane, one of the GT4 Aston Martins by the looks of it, as their pit stop is underway. But as expected, this stint of the race is lasting a little bit longer than the previous one, because they're keen to keep their pro drivers in the car, at least within GT3, a little bit longer. There's the 62 car in, and that's Will Moore about to get back on board. Here is our race leader, Marco Sorensen, and he... Well, ever since Phil Keane got through into second place, the lead gap has stayed stable at about 8 seconds or so. 8.4 it was at the start of the lap, and that is exactly where Marco Sorensen would rather like it to stay. Phil Keane second, Nicky Team third, still with that fastest lap that he set a little bit earlier on. Johnny Adam fourth, and Darren Turner fifth. Back in the GT4 ranks, there is the other BMW run by Century Motorsport, 43, Jack Mitchell, who I don't believe has yet made his stop. No, he hasn't, so he's inherited the class lead, in fact, has that BMW. Second place in the class now is the 501 McLaren, which we saw in all the action earlier on. Graham Johnson started the car. It's now being driven by Mike Robinson, side by side through club. That's always risky, especially when you're leading your class, but the BMW just about finds way up the inside of the 77 car, which started fourth on the grid in GT4, but it's been rather in the walls, unfortunately. Been in the gravel trap a couple of times, and a bit of contact with a couple of different cars. So unfortunately that car, there was much promise coming into this race, but it's not quite worked out as it should have done. Right, Phil Keane is in now, and Seb Morris is in as well. So we've got the two title contenders from last year in the pit lane together, and Phil Keane to hand over to John Mitchell. Rick Parfitt gets into the number one Bentley. He's already been and gone, excuse me. Phil Keane in. Here is the Mercedes GT4 as well. Scott Mulvin getting out. Got team manager of car 7 being summoned to race control. That's the Ian Logging Callum McLeod car, as if they hadn't had enough dramas already. But you can see there the number 33 Lamborghini tyre change as well, and Phil Keane therefore, John Mitchell, excuse me, therefore will have the benefit of those fresh tyres. That's always a nice feeling, isn't it, Ollie, when you jump out into a car on fresh rubber. Yes, you've got to bend them in a little bit for a lap or two, but then you have as much grip as you're ever going to have.
It's the best feeling. And in British GT, you get tyre ovens as well. So
yes,
when they go on the car, they're hot. They're
right,
ready as soon as you get out of the pit lane. It's the best feeling. And I was actually just looking at the timing screen there, because it's really interesting over the stint how the lap times evolve, because you'll find that the fastest lap will be at the start of the stint when the tyre's new, because you get the peak from the tyre. But then as the stint goes on, the tyre starts to go off a little bit, but then it gets to a point where it plateaus, and then you start getting quicker again as the fuel load comes off the cars. So you'll find that the cars will sort of drop away in the middle of the stint, and then they're quicker again at the end of the stint. But that feeling now as they're going out the pit lane on new tyres, straight into Maggotts and Beckett's as well, it's just awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. How quick are you going roughly, do you know, at the apex of Beckett's as you fling it into that right-hander? It's probably not quite flat out, is it?
It's just a lift in a GT3 car. It's a dab at the brake in a GT, like tiny. So I'd say at the apex, you're probably doing 200 kilometers an hour, 220 kilometers an hour maybe. So it's pretty quick. It's about 120 miles an hour, something like that. It's pretty quick.
Yeah, not hanging about. That certainly catches your attention, that, doesn't it? I think when you head into there for the first time out of the pit lane. So Marco Sorensen still leads into second place now, Nicky Team. It's an Aston Martin 1, 2, 3, 4 at the moment, because they're some of the GT3 cars that haven't yet stopped. I like that, the little face paint down there in the Barwell squad with the 33s and the 69s on their cheeks. Car 7 drive-through penalty, track limits, and that is Ian Loggy who is to blame this time, it would seem, having jumped into the Team Park Racing, the second Team Park Racing Continental GT3. Darren Turner is in the pit lane, I can tell you, in car number 99, and so he will jump out of 4th position, but Marco Sorensen not really keen to get out of the car just yet. There's number 5, McLaren, that has made its pit stop, so Lewis Proctor is back in the car. Of course, he's somewhere down the GT4 order at the moment. That's because he was one of the first to make a pit stop. That car will shortly start making its way back through the field, I'm sure. His next target on the track is in fact the car in front of it, the 61 Aston Martin, which I believe has also stopped. Yes, it has. So the 61 car of Tom Wood, that is for position. It's for a podium position essentially once everyone's made their pit stops, but for the time being they're running down in 5th and 6th within GT4. Aston Martin staying in front for the time being, but again these two cars have never really been that far apart since the drop of the green flag, what, an hour and 3/4 or so ago. Back out of Luffield they go, the McLaren against the Aston Martin, and it does seem like, and I'm always nervous to mention these 3 dreaded letters, but it does seem like the balanced performance, BOP, is working fairly well across both classes, doesn't it? We've been watching a lot of McLaren versus BMW versus Aston Martin battling a GT4. There doesn't seem that much to choose between them.
Yeah, it's really important, isn't it? It's really important for the fans, it's really important for the teams, the drivers. Everyone wants to see fair racing. You know, you don't want anyone having any manufacturer having a big advantage, and it seems to be working. If you look at the qualifying results as well, everyone is completely mixed up. So the SRO and British GT have done a really good job of getting the balanced performance right, as we can see here. The racing's awesome. And is this? This is John Minshaw, isn't it? Just trying to pick his way through these 2 GT4 cars. So now that puts Lewis there in a difficult position, because he's like, right now I've got a GT3 car between the 2 of us. Obviously Lewis doesn't want to lose too much time letting that GT3 car through. And now you almost hope that then the car in front of you does lose the time with letting the GT3 car through. It's really funny how you manage traffic in your head during a race like this, where you've got 2 or more different classes. So
when you're in a battle of GT3 cars and you're chasing down a back marker and you catch them, and all the time you're thinking, goodness sake, get out of my way, don't hold me up. And then you get through, and then you're like, right, no, you can hold the rest of them up, that's fine. You can do what you like with them, just let me go. It doesn't work that way though, unfortunately, and it can get frustrating, I'm sure, after a little while. So this battle raging on. I'll tell you what, that McLaren looks live on the brakes. You were telling me earlier on that you're one of a very few lucky people to have driven the brand new Senna McLaren, and you were saying how good that thing is on the brakes. Well, this GT4 570S, isn't it, does not look that bad on the brakes either. I've noticed a few times in a few different cars, a few different versions of that McLaren, looking really, really good on the brakes.
Yeah, it's actually one of the strongest assets. I've done a lot of mileage in the 570 GT4 as well, and it's one of the strongest assets of McLarens as supercars and as race cars is the corner entry, the braking and turning. That's where the car's really strong. And as you just pointed out there, it's obvious, isn't it, when you watch on the TV as well. That's, you know, you can brake really deep into the corner. It's good for racing. You want that in a race car. You want to be able to brake later than anyone else. So yeah, it's one of the strongest assets, to say, on the road cars, and you know, right through from the sort of 12C road car to the Senna that we've got now. It's a really important asset, both on and off the track, really.
Absolutely. We saw whilst we were pondering on McLaren's braking abilities that Marco Sorensen had brought the lead Aston Martin into the pit lane. So Nicky Team will inherit the race lead ahead of Johnny Adam and Rob Bell in the GT3 McLaren that has made its way up towards the front. We've had, I believe, a bit of contact here. This was deal. The number 7 Bentley doesn't want to get involved in any more contact. No, it slips up the inside of the 61 Aston Martin, and so up the inside goes number 5 Lewis Proctor, just catches the back of the 61 Aston Martin of Tom Wood. That shouldn't have done too much damage, but you don't want to be doing that too often, do you? Because those little carbon fibre winglets on the front of the car, they're there for a reason, aren't they?
Exactly what I was thinking. His thoughts through his head at that point was like, don't lose a dive plane, don't lose a dive plane, because then you just spend the rest of your race with understeer. They don't look like much from here on the TV. Even when you're standing next to the car, you think, does that really do a lot? But they are so important. They work well with the front splitter as well to get the air in the right places. It then travels over the rest of the car as well, so it gives you front downforce and it helps the efficiency of the aero across the rest of the car. So you don't want to be losing those. So that's all that would have been going through Lewis's head there.
Yes, exactly. But thankfully, it looks like both dive planes are intact and in full working order. They're being caught there by Ben Green, aren't they, in the 42 BMW. Also, he has made his second pit stop of the race. We've got the number 5 McLaren still struggling to find the way through, and Ricardo Sanchez there, the early race leader, starting to pick his way through. Now, Ricardo is, by my reckoning, the second highest driver to have made his stop. Only John Minshaw is in front of him, but he's in front of him by about 14 seconds, so a few more cars, I'm sure, will slip back into that group before too much longer. Having said that, number 17 Aston Martin, Derek Johnston, I see, has just left the pit lane in that car. There he goes. Marco Sorensen, of course, just handed over to him, so I think he will be in front still of, yes, he is definitely in front of Ricardo Sanchez. Is he in front of John Minshaw, I wonder, though? You'd imagine he probably will be, because John's been in the car for a little bit longer, whilst Marco Sorensen was still pounding around in the 17 Aston Martin. This GT4 battle then rages on, and Ben Green getting ever closer as well in that BMW. Ben on the previous lap was, about 6 or 7 tenths quicker than the two cars in front. So again, back to our point we were making earlier on, as those two cars start to squabble, they hold each other up, they're not running optimum lap times, and the car behind starts to close in.
And Ben Green, to be fair to him, is doing the opposite. He's absolutely flying at the moment. You know, he's putting in some really good sectors. He's managed the traffic, the GT3 traffic, really well as they're coming through, and he's just kind of got his head down, kept himself to himself for a few laps, and now he's right on the back of this battle. So these guys, if Lewis feels that he's got the pace to get past Wood, then he needs to do it quickly, but really before Ben's on the back of it.
Yeah, exactly. And they've also got Rick Parfitt closing in to put another lap on them, flashing the lights as ever he does in the number 1 Team Park Racing Bentley. And both of the Bentleys have had their dramas, but that car's had slightly fewer dramas than the sister car, it must be said. So he is running around in 7th at the moment, 4th of those that have stopped. So, but again, there are a few others that will start to gradually work their way into the picture. Now remember, after this set of pit stops are complete, there will be one more round of pit stops left, and it is at that round of pit stops where the pit stop penalty gets applied. So thus far, they've all just been running to the sort of the minimum pit stop time, but when we get to that last pit stop, that all starts to change. Rob Bell in behind as well, so that has Carl's running 3rd place at the moment, having not yet made its 2nd pit stop. It's the 3rd set of pit stops where we start applying the tyre penalties, and we can see once everyone's made this round of pit stops whereabouts everyone is, what sort of margins there are between the various cars. Got the 69 Lamborghini there of Sam Dahan also in the mix, and the 99 Beach Dean car with Andrew Howard back in it. So this is for position between those two. That's for 8th place at the moment, but it'll be a bit higher than that once everyone else makes their stops. So the number 99 Aston Martin won the championship in the past, of course. Only a couple of years ago, the Beach Dean were running cars in both GT3 and GT4. Then Andrew took a year out last year, took a couple of years out in fact, and now he's back in 2018, and it's great to have them back on board, if nothing else for the free ice cream that you get down in the pit lane. Which appropriately enough, the number 99 car, we usually see Aston Martin's numbered after James Bond or something like that, don't we? But no, with Beach Dean squad, it's an even more appropriate number for the 99 car. It's the 69 behind though, which is struggling still to find a way through, and Sam Dahan, who's had an up and down season at times, but he and Johnny Cocker are 9th place in the championship. I had to add up then, 9th place in the championship coming into this race. Had a big look at the inside there of Andrew Howard down in towards Stoke Corner, and again, two completely different cars here, Ollie. You've got the front engine Aston Martin, the mid-engine Lamborghini. They're both very different shapes, very different sizes, absolutely nothing to choose between them.
Yeah, and that's, back to what we were saying about balanced performance. That's why it's so important in this in GT3 racing, to keep everyone and GT4 racing obviously, but to keep everyone, all the manufacturers level. It also puts their focus more onto sort of reliability as well, and the majority of all of these teams are customer teams of the manufacturers, so it puts the manufacturer's focus onto making sure the car's reliable, making sure it's a good car for the team to run, and looking after their customers rather than just outright performance. So it looks as though it's going to get a little bit messy there. It's a horrible corner to catch some slower traffic as well, because it's flat out for both cars, for GT3 and GT4, but obviously at a much higher speed than GT3, so it's a horrible place to catch traffic, but they sort of kept it clean.
No, exactly, and my sharp intake of breath the corner before was because Sam Dehan has been really good on the brakes. This time around, though, it's not the braking ability that draws him alongside. It seems to be superior front-end grip, and that's a question I was going to ask you actually about the comparison between front-engined and mid-engine cars. Where are the strengths and weaknesses? Because it does look as though that Lamborghini is a bit better on the brakes, but maybe acceleration out of the corner almost, it seems to be more in the Aston Martin's favour.
You often find with the front engine car that it's really good on sort of braking and turning. Front and mid engine, obviously the further back the engine is, the more unstable you'll tend to find the car is on sort of braking and entry, like somewhere into Brooklyn to double left here as you come towards back towards the pits. Somewhere in there, that's where you'd find that a front engine car would probably be a little bit more stable, but obviously further back you've got the weight, further back.
Oh!
Wow, that was aggressive, wasn't it?
And it seemed unnecessarily so, because he still didn't get alongside anyway. I had to quite know what Sam was doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but you'll find with obviously the further back you put the engine, the more traction you'll tend to find you have.
Well, Sam Dehan now does make the move, but he needed all the traction he could get there as he swerved from one extreme side of the hangar straight down to the other. I'd love to see a replay of that. That was the big black lines that he left on the road behind him were a telltale sign that car was on the limit of adhesion and possibly slightly beyond it. That's Ian Loggy in behind, who is laps down, of course, after that car's various dramas. 7 laps off the race lead at the moment is Ian Loggy, but every bit as quick as these guys. In fact, if anything, even quicker it would seem than the 2 cars immediately in front of him, certainly than Andrew Howard at the moment. Sam Dehan is starting to check out up the road now, but as this battle continues to run out in GT3, we can head back down to Andy in the pits.
Hello there, yes, sprinkling a bit more celebrity stardust across the occasion. I'm very happy to say we've got Helen Stanley here from the Goblin Works Garage. How are you doing, Helen?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Now, this is your first experience of British GT?
Yeah, I watch it on TV. I love it. I think it's a fantastic series, but I've never actually watched it live, and it's something else live. The sounds and the smells and the whole atmosphere is it's awesome.
There's a proper crowd that have shown up for it as well.
It's great, and everyone's so friendly. There's a lot of camaraderie. It's a proper team sport. It's great.
Were you expecting there to be so much drama? Because, you kind of think of a 3-hour race at Silverstone and you're like, well, it might fall into a bit of a procession, but it really hasn't.
No, it really hasn't. You kind of think, oh, I've got 3 hours, I can wander off, get an ice cream. No, you can't, because you're going to miss something. I mean, there's a lot going on out there. So, yeah, but it's great. It gives you an excuse to watch cars racing for 3 hours. That's brilliant. It's like heaven.
Perfect. Brilliant. Well, we better get back to the action because it's all going on, but thank you for talking to us. Very appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andy, and my thoughts exactly. Many people try to tell me that endurance racing isn't very exciting, Ollie, but you know as well as me that there is always something going on. And what I love about endurance racing is you get to the end of the race, whether it be a 2-hour race or a 24-hour race, and every car has a story to tell, don't they? And they'll all have a few little war wounds, and they'll all have a few little dramas along the way, but there is never a dull moment.
No, these modern GT cars now, they're built so well and they're so reliable that you don't have to look after the car anymore like you did years ago. It's literally, this is a 3-hour sprint race. It's 3 hours of pushing as hard as you can. And that makes for some really good racing. There's no strategy involved. These cars, I think the fastest lap of the race so far is only just over a second of what they did in qualifying yesterday. So that's how hard they're pushing with cars full of fuel. So that just shows how hard they're pushing, and that's what makes for such exciting racing, because everyone is on the limit every lap.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real passion of mine, endurance racing, and it's great to see that a decent crowd have turned up at Silverstone here today to enjoy the longest race of the season in British GT, the Silverstone 500, competing for the RAC trophy. And here is, well, there was briefly John Minshaw. There is Nicky Team, and he is our race leader now, with Johnny Adam was in second place, but he's just pitted and handed over to Flick Haig again. So Johnny Adam has been in, and so Nicky Team now, one of the few pro drivers still in the cars. Yes, in fact, it's the only GT3 car that has not yet made its second pit stop. So Nicky Team staying in the car for an awfully long time. He'll hand over to Mark Farmer at some stage. The thought here being, of course, that if they leave the pro in the car for an extra 10 minutes or an extra 6 or 7 laps maybe, whilst the other cars have the AM drivers in, then when Nicky hands over to Mark, that car should be a bit further up the order than it was before pit stops began.
That's the plan, and he's had a couple of clear laps as well. Like even the last lap, he did a 2:01.0, which is only 0.6 off his fastest lap of the race, the fastest lap of the race overall. He's here we go. He's in the pits. He's in the pits.
Oh, right on cue. So in he comes. Now remember, this is his second pit stop. Oh, just about getting to do. That's something else that you don't realise unless you actually go and stand at the end of pit lane. How hard the drivers attack pit entry. They leave that braking to the very, very last moment, and it's hardly any wonder that occasionally they do get pinged for speeding, because they leave that braking right to the last second.
Yeah, we don't want to give away any of the work we've just done over the last hour or whatever we've been in the car. So yeah, it's quite an important part of your stint is your pit in and your pit out. You know, the out lap is really important. You can lose or gain a couple of seconds on the out lap just from being pushing hard through the first few corners. Obviously, it's a little bit easier when you've got hot tyres like we have in British GT, but if you're on cold tyres, it's even more important that you get the heat into the tyres as quick as you can so that you don't lose too much time.
Yes, and speaking of tyres, they go for the new tyres onto the back of that Aston Martin. Speaking of Aston Martins, this is the fight for the race lead now between Derek Johnston and Flick Haig. Flick Haig, who won back at Alton Park with Johnny Adam, and she is chasing down Derek Johnston in the lead car. These cars have both made their second pit stops. This is a genuine fight for the race lead now as they turn their way down through Stoke Corner. They're only about 3.5 seconds clear of John Minshaw as well, who's been lapping a little bit quicker than them lately. So Derek Johnston ahead of Flick Haig, but Derek, I believe, actually got past Flick on the previous lap. That's because it was Flick's out lap though. So this is a genuine fight, and Flick has every potential to fight back and try and get the lead back away from him. John Minshaw will therefore be third, Ricardo Sanchez fourth, and Rick Parfitt Jr. fifth of those that have stopped. Of course, we need to wait and see where Mark Farmer slots back into that, because he'll filter in somewhere in between them when they come through this time. So at the moment, our timing screen is showing Nicky Team still as being in the 11 car. We know now that it will be Mark Farmer. They're still being shown as the race leaders, and that's because they, of course, went a lap ahead of everybody else as a result of the pit stops. Number 5, McLaren is in for its third pit stop. Yes, I thought it was its third pit stop, so that will be another driver change now for that car. We've got another 10-second stop-go penalty, I'm afraid, for car 144. Matthew George, that's the car that, if you remember right back to the first stint of the race, Matthew George in the 144 car was running inside a podium position in GT4. That car, unfortunately, though, Matthew's back at the wheel now, is going to have to go to the pit lane for a 10-second stop-go penalty. So the third place car, John Minshaw, comes through there. Now there is Mark Farmer. Is he still in the race lead, I wonder? I think he might be, you know. Have they got that number 11 car out in front of the 17 of Derek Johnston? Yes, they have, by quite some way. Look, there is Derek Johnston. So forget what I said before about this being the battle for the race lead. I thought they would leapfrog back ahead, but that's exactly what we said would happen, isn't it? Because Nicky Team stayed in the car for longer. They've been able to maximise the use of their pro driver and getting into the lead of the race. The trouble is now, though, that this stint will become a little bit longer for the AM driver, so it swings and roundabouts, I suppose. For the time being, at least, Ollie, it seems to really be working well for them.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know how long they've got to do now in this stint. Obviously, it will all start to pan out in a minute when we get to the final stops. Obviously, a few of the cars have got to have success penalties as well. So it will be interesting. That last stint we'll know exactly where everyone lies, who's done what sort of driving time, and then it'll be sort of crunch time for the last half an hour or so.
Right, okay, so we've got more news, I believe, from down in the pit lane. Andy J is with, I believe, Lewis Proctor.
Yes, you are correct, Lewis Proctor here. Now, Lewis, my counting could be atrocious, but from the looks of things, I believe you've now had 3 pits.
That's correct. Yeah. We both kind of stretched out, or I certainly stretched out my first stint to about an hour, which was quite tough. But no, I had a mega start. I jumped up to the lead quite early on, and then held that for a while, but decided not to try and defend too hard and kind of ruin the tyres and let the other McLaren by, and the Aston got past me as well. So we held third, pitted. Jordan did a mega job, and we've got some new boots on for these last 2 stints. So yeah, it should be going well. I don't quite know where we are yet. I haven't checked where everyone else is in the pit stops and everything, but yeah, we're looking for a strong finish.
And we haven't seen the last of you in the car then?
No, so that is the last of me in the car.
Oh, you're done? You're all finished?
That's done. That's 2 stints done.
So you can relax?
Yeah. I can relax.
Thank you.
Well, Andy, drama on the track for our GT4 class leader, Finlay Hutchison, with plumes of smoke coming from the front right corner. What do we think that might be, Ollie? That doesn't look like a puncture to me.
No, it doesn't, does it? It looks like there's some sort of bodywork damage, maybe something rubbing on the tyre. So I wonder how that's happened, because they don't just sort of race cars bodywork especially doesn't just break itself. So it'd be interesting to see if there's been some sort of contact somewhere. But he wants to get that back to the pits really before that tyre goes. If there's something rubbing on it, it won't last very long at all. So hopefully he gets it. Yeah, it looks like that tyre's starting to fall apart now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
so
does.
Hopefully he gets that back to the pits before he does any sort of major damage. But this is definitely costing them quite a lot of time and possibly their class lead.
Well, they were a country mile ahead of anyone else. They were 35 seconds clear of Ben Green in the BMW, but well, I was about to say they were losing a lot of time by this slow lap into the pit lane. It doesn't look all that slow to me. Finlay is hurrying to get it back in, but as we said earlier on, you can often do more damage to the car by rushing in. But I do fear that if it's not a puncture, that tells me that there's something that's broken, be that through contact or just through general wear and tear, which would be unlikely, I suppose. But whatever it is, that may well be a fairly lengthy repair job needed. But that tyre definitely looked to be inflated. Perhaps we can see it as it comes into the pit lane and see exactly what the situation is. This, meanwhile, is the fight for second place. Flick Hager's got herself right onto the tail of Johnston. Derek Johnston here for second place. You can see John Minshaw getting ever closer in the background as well. So second, third and fourth getting themselves fairly close together here. Flick Hager, a really impressive performance here. She closes right in. You can see there the brake lights came on a bit later than they did for Derek Johnston. Almost too late though. She almost ran into the back of the number 17 car. Had to jink out wide to avoid contact. Runs a bit wide over the curve, but just trying to carry as much momentum as possible out onto the pit straight. There's the number 10 car. Now, I don't know whether they've changed the tyre or what they've done to the car at this point, but it's going to be in the pit lane for some time, and it has now lost the class lead to Ben Green. The second place GT3 cars though come through. They're 12.5 seconds behind the race leader. Yeah, they're struggling to get the tyre off that 10 car, aren't they? For whatever reason. Boxing behind back markers there, and this is so frustrating for Derek Johnston, but it's single file through here anyway, really, so even if he does get held up, there's no way Flick Hager is going to get through. What has happened, though, is that John Minshaw has closed right onto the tail of Flick. Now, this, in a way, will take a bit of the pressure off Derek Johnston, because Flick Hager is now not able to just solely concentrate on attacking the Aston Martin in front of her. She has to watch the mirrors as well, and she knows that if she goes for a move that doesn't work, it could cost her a position. Yeah,
again, if you're in the front of these three cars, you're thinking all you want is for the two behind to start battling each other. It's really funny how obviously your mindset totally changes depending on which of those three cars you're in. So yeah, although we want it now is a bit of a battle behind them. But Derek Johnston's just obviously he's got to concentrate on making not making any mistakes. It looks as though they've got the wheel off that McLaren though. Yes. But they're looking at it as though there's a bit of damage under there, aren't they?
Oof! Yes, I think there might be, and there's nearly some damage there. It's John Minshaw threading the eye of a needle there between Flick Hager and one of the slower Ginettas, I think that was in GT4, yes it was. But looks like Flick has got up the inside now. Derek Johnston, this is for second position, and yes, she makes it stick. Lovely job there, superior traction out to the corner, and that loss of momentum there for Johnston means that John Minshaw gets alongside as well, and John should be able to make that move stick for third. Yes, he does. So 2 places lost there for Derek Johnston. It's so often the way, isn't it, that when you lose one place, they all come flooding through, and there really isn't all that much you can do about it.
Yeah, but it's a brilliant bit of driving from all three drivers there, really, because close racing through 2 or 3 very fast corners. So, and they all came out without a mark on the car or anything, and you've got to remember that these are the AM drivers of the cars. So, and that was all very professional, wasn't it? Very good, good bit of racing there, nice and close, but not, you know, nothing silly. And now they've got to pick their way through a GT4 car through Maggotts and Beckett's, which is not easy as well. And you know, you really, if you're in the GT3 car in this situation, you've really got to be thinking so far ahead. You've got to be planning, trying to work out where you're going to catch that GT4 car and how you're then going to pass them, rather than it being a sort of a shock when you get there.
Yeah, exactly. And the way they pick their way through the back markers, they cut it fine sometimes. Generally speaking, they do manage to do it cleanly. We are starting to get our final pit stops beginning now, as the AM drivers are jumping out and they're trying to get their pro driver in as soon as they can. Seb Morris has jumped into the number 1 car, and I believe Sam Dahan has come in to hand over the 69 Lamborghini to Johnny Cocker. We now therefore need to start considering our pit stop penalties, because remember, the car that is leading this race in the hands at the moment of Mark Farmer is 11.8 seconds ahead of this battle for second place between Flick Haig and John Minshaw. He will spend 10 seconds longer than these two cars in the pit lane though at the last pit stop, so it's going to be mighty close between the two of them, especially Flick Haig off wide there, off the edge of the road, and round the outside goes John Minshaw. If he makes that stick, that'll be one of the moves of the day. He's done it as well. Brilliant stuff back from Minshaw. Opportunistic driving as he saw the mistake from Flick Haig there. Flick will now try and get back in the slipstream though on the run down the Wellington straight. She'll have a little look to the inside down in towards Brooklands. The Lamborghini late enough on the brakes to hang on to the position. So Mark Farmer in the lead will have a 10-second success penalty by virtue of finishing 3rd in the second race at Snetterton last time out. John Minshaw very, very close there. That's the 61 Aston Martin running second place within class, and that car that just about stayed out of the way there, but he's running second in class. The GT4 lead at the moment is Ben Green in that number 42 BMW, but of course it's going to be interesting to see how the cars that have done 3 pit stops have where they filter out after the last round of pit stops have been done. We had a slow car there, I believe, potentially, as they made their way down into this part of the circuit. Might speed up, might have been that 501 McLaren, which is staying well out of the way. Well, I said that Seb Morris was into the Bentley now. He'll be in that car for the rest of the race. Andy J is down there once more with Rick Harfitt.
Yes, that's right, and it's very much a case of job done for Rick now. Nothing more he can do except for sit back and watch. Feeling much happier now, Rick.
Yeah, that was a good stint, actually. I found my rhythm. The car was just perfect, and I was second quickest car out there, only behind one other, which was a pro. So that's good to know. I came out in front of Rob Bell, the factory McLaren driver, and dropped him. So that was a good feeling as well, and didn't feel like a lot of people going a lot quicker. So yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed that. I found a really good rhythm, which perhaps because of all the stress of everything in the first stint, I didn't quite find my rhythm. And but in that stint, I hardly sort of broke a sweat. It was great. I could have done that all day long, and I was a bit disappointed to be called in. But we have a strategy, and you have to stick to it. So hopefully we're up to sort of 5th or 6th or something like that, which is a good recovery. And Seb's got a long stint now, and obviously we all know Seb's very quick, but hopefully we can try and get it into, who knows how far we can take it. If we could get a podium for Ryan, for my teammate, who's been the best teammate ever. He's just an amazing chap, and his family to have left the money in the car for Seb to be able to get in and to allow me to race today is just epic, and that doesn't happen very much in motorsport, that there's that sort of magnanimous sort of gestures. And so I really would like to get some silverware for them, because Ryan was going so well this weekend. It's just so gutting he's not in the car. Obviously Super Seb, who I know well, has gone back in, and the old pairing's back together for a race, and that's nice, but obviously I'd have liked to have had my current teammate in the car.
Fair enough, mate. Thank you, Rick. Happy days.
Well, there is the other team, Parker Bentley, making its way down the back straight, but always nice to hear from Rick Harfitt Jr. As I said earlier on, pours his heart and soul into his racing. He wears his heart on his sleeve. We saw the 501 car that had been going slowly at the start of the lap has now stopped up at turn 13, which is the Village Complex. Now, it was fairly close to the edge of the road. I hope that totally the safety car right as the final set of pit stops are underway, because we've got a tantalising situation here, because John Minshaw, who we're watching in second place there, the number 33 Lamborghini, 11, well nearly 12 seconds off the lead, but he had a bit of a slow lap in traffic last time around. Generally speaking, he's been about 10 seconds off the leader, who will spend that extra 10 seconds in the pit lane. So that's going to work out incredibly close. This is another car that has a 10-second success penalty. The 62 Academy Motorsport car. Matt Nicol-Jones is about to jump back in behind the wheel. They finished third in class at Snetterton last time out, so they have a 10-second penalty as well. And this is just a better way than, you know, some of the championships use success ballast and other forms of, you know, they use the BOP to slow the quick teams down. This is a little bit of a more fluid way of doing it, I think. They have to spend a bit longer in the pits for their next pit stop at the next race, and it's only for one race then. It doesn't sort of accumulate as the year goes on. There's Struan Moore. He's back into the number 24 Nissan that started on pole position. They're still in contention here, most definitely. You'd have to say that any car that's still on the lead lap is more or less still in contention within GT3, because when they stick their pro drivers in, they're all very, very quick indeed. Of course, they're all equally quick as well. 501 car is still stranded there at the side of the road. Hopefully, we'll be able to get that car moved with the yellow flags, but it's not the easiest part of the circuit to get to. Nissan on Nissan there, the GT3 and the GT4 cars getting a little bit close together, and Struan Moore picks his way through. He is about 5 seconds ahead of Seb Morris, and they're two of the first cars to have made their pit stops within GT3, so that's quite an interesting battle to watch develop as we go through the remaining 45 minutes of the race, because we are now 3/4 of the way through this Silverstone 500, and into the pit lane dives the car that had a 2-minute stop-go penalty earlier on, 53 Nissan. That was Kelvin Fletcher back in the car once more. So he makes his way back into the pits for the final driver change, and he will hand over therefore to Martin Plowman for the remainder of the race. So Struan Moore then, in this number 24 Nissan, he's pushing on, isn't he? Now gets a proper crack at this, because it transpired, didn't really get a fair go of it in his first stint. There was an issue with the seat, he couldn't reach the pedals, and that meant that he really wasn't able to hang on to the position that he was in. Now we'll really get to see what he can do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what his pace is like. What else is interesting is I noticed that Seb Morris just done his fastest lap of the race, which is only 4/10 off the fastest lap overall. So Seb Morris is on a mission, and they've done their third stop. So it will be interesting to see where those guys come out after all the stops in front of them. So he's pushing hard. Seb Morris is on a bit of a mission there.
Yeah, he's about 3 seconds behind the car we're watching now, the Nissan. In fact, he is the next car in picture, I think, behind. And so he looks likely to gain this place before too much longer. But looking at the cars in front of him that have made their third stop, well, there are no other cars in front of Struan Moore who have made their third stop. So if he can find a way past the Nissan, he'll be the lead car that has stopped. But of course, there are other cars about to make their pit stop like this one. And this is one of the most important ones, because this is the race leader. This is Mark Farmer to hand over to Nicky Team. Remember, they have this 10-second success penalty. The car flashes past us into the pit lane, and to the outside, you won't be able to tell any difference to this pit stop. They'll still get everything done as efficiently as possible. They'll sit there and wait for the time to elapse, but it will all come out in the wash. John Minshaw is also in there, actually, so this will be this will be really interesting. Which of these cars will get out in front, because they were about 11 seconds apart last time through, but the Lamborghini's pit stop should be about 10 seconds quicker, so this is a genuine race in the pit lane, potentially for the race lead going into the last stint. So Minshaw gets out, he'll hand over to Phil Keane. Nicky Team is ready and waiting to get into the number 11 Aston Martin once the final fuel load has gone in, and it's more crucial now than ever to make sure you get every last drop of that fuel in. The last thing you want to do is to run out of fuel, and there you can see that they're using the second can of fuel to get that Lamborghini filled to the brim.
Interesting, they must have a problem with their fuel rig if they're using dump churns to refuel the car. So that's a slower way of now they're using the fuel rig. So that's really interesting.
Right.
I've not seen that before. They've done half the fueling with dump churns and then half the fueling with a fuel rig. So that's be interesting to see whether that affects the stop. Obviously, with the minimum pit stop time, it shouldn't. So unless they've actually had a problem, which it looks like they've finished fueling the car. So that's good news. They're not going to be affected. They shouldn't be affected by that at all. So it's difficult here for the car that's further down the pit lane, because obviously if it is as close as we think it's going to be, they've got to make sure they don't obviously release the car unsafely as well. So it's like someone's got to make that call whether or not they release it.
Yeah, they're just the pit stop's done. Now they just sit there and twiddle their thumbs, wait for the time to elapse. But we watch for Minshaw to be released. It is going to be close. In theory, the Aston Martin should stay in front, but it will be close, and that's the point Ollie's making. There'll be less than a second in it potentially. So do they dare release the Aston Martin, given the fact that the Lamborghini will be breathing down its neck? So watch for movement from either of these two cars. Watching the stopwatch, as soon as they can release them, they will. Phil Keane and Nicky Team about to do battle in the pit lane, maybe for the lead and the win of this race. They're still waiting. This seems to be the longest pit stop in the world, doesn't it? Still they can't release the cars. Now away goes the Lamborghini and away goes the Aston Martin. It was just as you said, it was so close, but the Aston Martin hangs on. But now these two are going to go out onto the circuit less than a second apart, and they've got 41.5 minutes to settle it. That is going to be very enjoyable to watch.
Amazing, isn't it? Amazing that we've got to this stage of the race where 2 hours and 20 minutes into the race and there's less than a second between the two, between these two. So really cool. After all those, those stops and the incidents and the traffic and everything, this is what we've got for our final stint of the race. It's so good to watch.
And don't forget, that number 11 Aston Martin has been spun around once already in this race, and they fought back for a spin at the very corner they just went through. So it's been an eventful race for the TF Sports squad with both of their cars. There is Mark Farmer. He watches on from the pit lane as the battle is well and truly joined on track now. Then Nicky Team and Phil Keane. Of course, there's one last piece of the puzzle to fit in here, which is where will the 75 car fall out, because they don't have a pit stop penalty either. Remember, they were running right with the Lamborghini, so it could get even closer. Down to Andy in the pits.
Yes, I'm with John Minshaw. John, you've got some serious sweat on right now, but are you a relieved man or a frustrated man?
No, I enjoyed that stint more than the first. I mean, starting 12th wasn't really where we wanted to be, but we had some problems all weekend. We seemed to resolve that, and then sort of trying to fight your way up from 12th up the field's very difficult. They're pretty good guys in front of us. In the second stint, Keeney gave me a few pointers, which worked very well, and I got into a nice rhythm and caught, I think, Haig up and Johnson, and enjoyed the drive. Actually, the best bit of the day, actually.
Well, that's good to hear. And now it looks like it's a situation where it's Phil Keane versus Nicky Team. Who are you putting your money on? I know what you're going to say.
Well, I think they're both Premier League drivers, so who knows?
You probably do. You know how the car's feeling.
I know what I want, but they're Premier League drivers.
All right, sitting on the fence for a little while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andy. And as I was alluding to, well, actually, Flick Haig has just brought the car that had just inherited the race lead into the pit lane. So this is the final piece of the puzzle. Then in a lap's time, we'll know exactly what the situation is at the front of the field between the 17 Aston Martin, the 11 Aston Martin, 33 Lamborghini, and the 75 Aston Martin, because they were the 33 Lamborghini and 75 Aston Martin were running absolutely together before the pit stops. However, the 17 squad, the other TF Sport car, they've left their Ram driver in for a lap longer, so that might hurt them temporarily. But then, of course, they will have the very rapid Johnny Adam at the wheel. And he, another one of those factory Aston Martin drivers, 5 of them in the race that will all be heading off to Le Mans in a week's time to compete there in the GT ranks. But great to have such factory support once more in the British GT Championship. There is Phil Keane then, and as he starts to, if anything, lose a bit of ground at the moment to Nicky Team. So it looks like Nicky has warmed to his task a little bit quicker.
I think it looked like Phil just got sort of held up by a little bit of traffic through Maggotts and Beckett's, a bit of GT4 traffic. So, but the problem is, it's now he can't just suddenly find that time when he's racing against Nicky Team, So he's going to have to hope that that Nicky gets the same thing in a couple of laps' time. But it was great to hear from John Minshaw there, and he sort of emphasised a point that we spoke about earlier on, where it's so important as a pro to help your AM. He said that Phil had given him a couple of pointers before his second stint. He went out there, tried them, it worked, and he found some time, and that could change the result of their race massively. It could even win them the race. So it's really good to hear that they've got that kind of relationship where they really work well together. And we've got some top pros in this championship. There's a lot of factory drivers, a lot of top professional drivers, but the level of the AMs is so high. It's you know, they're looking for a couple of tenths here or there, and that could completely swing the way in which your race goes. So got an Aston there just leaving the pits.
Yeah, that's Johnny Adam, and he's going to be behind these two, but not by very much. So let's see where he comes out. There he is, so not far behind at all. So that is first place there, Nicky Team flashes through. Second place, the green and red Lamborghini. And third will be the white and black Aston Martin behind at the moment, but we've still got a couple of others. Andrew Howard, for example, hasn't yet pitted in the number 99 car. And he, though, I think is the last one. Yeah, he's the last of the GT3 runners not to have made 3 pit stops, and they, remember, have a 15-second time penalty because they finished second in race 2 at Snetterton last time out. So he's inherited the race lead, but it won't last all that long. He'll have to pit and will come out somewhere behind this group. In fact, as I say that, in he comes. So I heard the rumble out of my commentary box window, which could only have been an Aston Martin on the pit lane speed limiter, and indeed it was. So Andrew Howard is in, and this will now complete the picture as far as the GT3 field is concerned. Well, Mark Farmer has had a busy old day out there in the Aston Martin, and now he's catching up with Andy in the pits.
I think a busy day is a fair summary, Andy. Mark, you seem quite cool and not too sweaty now, but you've put a shift in, haven't you?
Yeah, I certainly have. I wasn't very cool and unsweaty about an hour ago after I got out of the car for the first time. Yeah, it's hard work out there.
How are you feeling at this point in time? Because, of course, you've handed over to Nicky Team. He's stepped up in the last couple of rounds, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. I mean, Nicky's got a super pace, and so, you know, we've always been blessed with that. You know, my feelings are mixed at the moment because we kind of had the race under control. We had a pretty decent strategy that looks like it's playing out, but we had quite a bad contact in my stint, which I think I was lying P2, and that knocked us right down the order. So I was pretty angry about that. It was a sort of a fairly unnecessary move, really. But the team have done absolutely flawless pit stops. Nicky's done a flawless job to get to put us back. I just went out and did. Well, Mike said you've got to get in there and you've just got to do qualifying laps. Just keep doing them.
Wow.
And you know, it's kind of quite hard to do that with the traffic. There's a lot of quite difficult places to overtake. But I was very, very, very focused. And yeah, now Nicky's in the car. I think the pit stop was super. We had a 10-second success penalty from Snetterton, but the guys absolutely nailed it. And it looks like we just jumped Phil Keane and John Minshaw in the pits, which
by about a half a second.
By about half a second. What's not to like?
Well done, thank you.
Well, my sentiment's exactly what's not to like about the grandstand finish that we could be about to see. There's Johnny Adam then. He's rejoined in the number 75 Aston Martin. Third place, we think. We are still waiting to see where Darren Turner comes out in the number 99 Aston Martin, but I'm fairly certain that he will be behind this leading group. So the gaps at the front, Nicky Team was a second and a half ahead of Phil Keane, who was 2.4 seconds ahead of Johnny Adam at the start of the lap. Seb Morris, fifth at the moment, and I suppose really the question is going to be where Darren Turner comes out in relation to him, because they were running fairly close together, those two cars, the 99 and the number 1. But if Seb Morris gets a whiff of a podium, then he will go for it hell for leather, because that would be just the perfect storybook ending to what has been a pretty trying day out there so far. So down in towards Brooklands comes the number 33 Lamborghini.
And Sorensen is absolutely flying. He's just gone purple in sectors 1 and 2. So he's on a mission now as well. It's amazing, isn't it, how 2.5 hours into the race and suddenly he's gone. Look, we've had another purple sector here from Rob Bell. Rob Bell, that's good to see in the McLaren in the 650 GT3. The pace is really strong. Rob's gone his personal best first sector, and then he's gone purple in sector 2. So, I mean, it just shows the depth of the field here. It's unbelievable. You got Rob in P9 who's setting purple sectors. So this doesn't seem to be anything wrong, as we said earlier, with the balanced performance, is it? Because every manufacturer is on fire here. They're all flying.
Well, as you were talking about purple sectors, Nicky Team set a new fastest lap of the race, 2 minutes 0.4. Pretty impressive. Only Marco Sorensen just then went and did a 59.7. 3/4 of a second quicker than Nicky Team went in an identical car, in theory. Jason Wolfe, unfortunately, has pulled the number 24 Invictus Games Jaguar off to the side of the road. And that car, unfortunately, appears to be going no further. Hopefully we'll be able to deal with that as the yellow flags. 43 BMW is in as well, the Century Motorsport car. Once this car and a couple of others have made their pit stops in GT4, we'll be able to give you the full rundown of the GT4 order as well. We've been focusing, of course, on GT3 predominantly for the last portion of the race as that strategy starts to filter through. GT4 is getting equally as tight.
And a 59.9 there for Rob Bell, so that's faster than that's half a second faster than he went in qualifying yesterday, which is really impressive. And 2/10 off the fastest lap of the race in the 650 GT3. So it's, as I said, it's really good to see all of these guys, all of these top pros. As we said earlier, there's not much time difference between them as drivers. They're all, Rob's got a lot of experience as well, and we can see that depth the whole way through the field, right through the GT4 field as well. With some of the younger and less experienced drivers, the pace is still so impressive, and we've still got green sectors coming up in the GT4 category of Scott Malvern there and doing his best second sector of the race as well. So it's really good to see this sort of pace this late in the race as well.
Yeah, exactly. The 43 BMW there leaving the pit lane. Now, as far as GT4 is concerned, let's have a look. Leading at the moment on the timing screen is the 144 car, which I'm sure had a pit lane penalty earlier on, but that is Matthew George on board. No, beg your pardon. No, Callum Poynton leads GT4, but he hasn't pitted yet, and number 43 BMW was second, but has just pitted. So Matthew George at the moment is third place in GT4, but the first of the cars to have actually made all three of its pit stops. So as long as they don't have to come in again, that car could be sitting pretty at the top of the GT4 classification. It makes its way back out through Woodcote. That was Jelmer Berman going through just in front of him in the 116 Mercedes AMG GT3 car. But the Generation AMR, Generation Aston Martin Racing car leading the class. This is car number 5, the McLaren of Jordan Albert, running 17th place overall. 4th of the GT4 cars, but again, that's not really telling because we're still waiting for others to make their pit stops.
Yeah, third in class, and that Mitchell's on his out lap at the moment, so it looks as though the McLaren, Jordan Albert, the number 5 McLaren, is going to jump into second in class, second in the silver class, I think. For the
yes, I think he will do, won't he? Yeah, absolutely. So that car's been there or thereabouts all day, really, hasn't it? And there's, generally speaking, kept itself out of trouble, so which has been easier said than done at times in this race. But there he goes, turns his way into the village complex. He's got the fastest car on the track, about to put a lap on him. That's Marco Sorensen, who tried to go to the outside there, then realised that wasn't necessarily the best part of the circuit, to be honest. He went to the inside instead. That will just hurt his lap time ever so slightly. Marco Sorensen still in the 159. His last lap was in the 159 as well, only 2/10 slower than his outright fastest lap. So Marco Sorensen really impressing here, but he's got some gap to try and close on the leading contenders. There's the 42 BMW. That is not Ben Green in the car now. It's going to be Ben Tuck, the other Ben, in the 42 BMW, which has got the 66 Mercedes breathing down its neck. But that's not the position. That car being driven by Scott Malvern is a couple of laps behind. So the BMW is in blissful isolation for the time being. How much longer that will last, we'll have to wait and see. There goes Johnny Cocker, there goes Callum McLeod. Confirmation of the order there then. So Nicky Team has a 4-second lead now over Phil Keane in second place. He's only 2 seconds ahead of Johnny Adam though. Johnny Adam is the quicker of the three at the moment, it would seem. Seb Morris in 4th is not quite on their pace. He's 8.5 seconds back in 4th position, and 5th place for Struan Moore in the Nissan, lapping about the same, only 3 seconds behind him. Marco Sorensen then is in 6th place. 7th place is Johnny Cocker in the car we're watching now, the pink and black Lamborghini. 8th place for Rob Bell, car 101, the McLaren, and 9th place for Darren Turner. So yeah, that car really did fall down the order as a result of its lengthier pit stop. In GT4, do we have an accurate read now on the order there? No, because still we haven't had the third pit stop for the 55 HHC Ginetta of Callum Poynton. When he does come in, the 144 Aston Martin will take over the class lead. That's Matthew George. Second place will be the sister car to the BMW we're watching now. This is the 43 car being driven in this stint by Jack Mitchell. There is the car that's set to take over the class lead in GT4. And then third place in class will be Jordan Albert in the number 5 McLaren, fourth for Ben Tuck in the 42 BMW, and fifth for Matt Nicol-Jones. Those cars all a few seconds apart, but there is ample opportunity for the gap to start coming down. So we're into that final part of the race, and for the most part, with most of the teams having executed their final pit stop, it is all going to be settled on the racetrack. And for the AM drivers, Ollie, they've got almost the hardest job of the lot, because they're sat in the pit lane watching their car go around the circuit, and they have no control whatsoever over what happens next.
Yeah, this part of the race is a lot more fun when you're in the car, but it's a normal sort of procedure really to put your fastest driver in at the end of the race, because this is sort of crunch time. You know, this is where you just give it everything. You haven't got to save tyres. You know at this point if you've got to save brakes or anything like that, and if you don't, it's literally just now we've got 26 minutes of qualifying laps to really see what these guys can get, see what sort of result they can get out of this. So yeah, it's the AMs. The AMs, they're going to be, this is probably the most nervous they're going to be all race, especially at the front. You know, when your car's competitive and you've just handed your car. A lot of these AMs own these cars as well, so they've literally handed their car over to their pro to get the job done. It's a really strange feeling. You know, I imagine it must be a strange feeling for these guys, but that's why they employ these top pros to drive with them and to coach them and stuff like that, because these guys have got an important job now, you know. So that's why you sort of need to have that relationship. It's sort of they trust these pros to do the job, and hopefully we're going to see a good race out of this in this last 25 minutes.
As I suspected was the case, the 144 Aston Martin that was about to inherit the class lead still owed us an extra pit stop. They'd done 3 stops. One of them was a pit lane penalty. So actually, the car that is going to inherit the class lead, I think, is going to be the 43 BMW of Jack Mitchell, who should find himself ahead of Jordan Albert by about 6 seconds or so. So this Matthew George car comes in, and I think they are going to do another driver change as well, as they will have to, so that each driver gets the minimum driver time done. So James Holder will jump on board. This, therefore, is the car that, when it all shakes out, I reckon is going to take over the class lead. Callum Poynton is also in the car that was leading, the 55 HHC Ginetta. So, barring any major mishaps, this car should come through as a class lead. The 43 car didn't have a time penalty, of course. Its sister car did, by virtue of having won last time out. The 144 car is one of the Pro-Am machines. The 43 car is a Silver Cup entry, so they've had to contend with the extra 10 kilos, the extra 10 seconds in the pit lane as well. But through it goes. The BMW turns into Copse Corner as the class leader in GT4, with a fairly healthy margin as well over Jordan Albert, who on the previous lap wasn't quite as quick. There's a couple of seconds off the pace being set by Ben Mitchell in front of him. So back out will go James Holder. We were discussing then, Ollie, how nerve-wracking it is for the AM driver, or whichever the driver is that's not doing the final stint. But of course, there's a hell of a lot of pressure on the shoulders of the driver that is doing the last stint, because up to this point, you know, for the cars that are in the lead mix, things have gone more or less to plan. You've got a race to try and win. If you mess up now, it's on you, and that's the whole race down the chute, isn't it?
Yeah, but I guess as a sportsman, your job, part of your job is to not think like that. You know, you kind of, for anyone that plays golf will know that if you think, I can't hit this in the water, you're probably going to hit it in the water. So you don't want to think about making mistakes. You don't want to think, oh, you know, I can't mess this up. You just go out there, you do your job, you push as hard as you can, and if everything's right on the day, you're going to get the result that you kind of deserve. So if you handle it the right way mentally, it's actually the best place to be now is in Nicky Toom's position. You know, he's got the least amount of pressure on him. He can just go out there. He can just do his job, keep it on the black stuff, get some consistent times in, manage the traffic well. You know, think about it. Don't make any silly decisions or anything like that. And that's all he's got to do really.
So, as a driver, then, which one do you prefer, or which one do you find the most nerve-wracking? Taking the start of the race, where it's all so perilous and you've got all these cars around you, it can all go wrong in the first few minutes, or having that pressure of the final stint? Which one's the most nerve-wracking?
It's difficult because if someone says to you before the start of the race, which stint would you rather do, you'd rather be in at the end of the race. You know, you want to get and know exactly what you've got, what you're working with. This is it. It's down to me, and I'm going to get the best I can out of it. But then, when you do get put in for a start stint, it's just so much fun. You think, okay, yeah, I really miss starting races. You know, I love starting races because quite often in Pro-Am racing, you'll start your AM. Obviously, in British GT, when you've got 2 races on one weekend, one of you starts one race, the other, the Pro, you know, the AM starts one race and the Pro starts the other race. But quite often in endurance races, you'll start your AM. So as a Pro, it's quite rare that you really start races, but it's so much fun when you do. And we're seeing a load of green lap times coming up again, aren't we?
Yes, I did just notice that. I think that's because the GT3 cars are in fairly clean air for the time being. Here are a couple of GT4 Ginettas, and it is the number 50 car, another one of the HHC machines, the car that's being driven in this final stint, I believe, by Will Burns. And Will Burns, of course, raced in the British Touring Car Championship for a season last year, and former Ginetta GT4 Super Cup Championship contender. And he is in the blue and white car there at the front of the picture. The other one, the 88 car, there, the one with the fluorescent yellow bodywork on the front end. That car is being driven in this final stint by Ben Wallace, I believe. They're running some way down the order, but Ginettas do seem to find themselves running fairly closely together out on the circuit. 4th place in GT4 is Matt Nicol-Jones. That's the Aston Martin on the screen now. And he is only about 2.2 seconds behind Ben Tuck in the second of the BMWs. Now, I think I'm right in saying we haven't had 2 of those BMWs on the podium in the same race in GT4 yet this year. So Ben Tuck will be doing everything he can to try and keep the Aston Martin behind him. The Aston Martin is arriving with quite a bit of pace, so it's going to be an interesting battle, this one, isn't it? And you get down into these final 20 minutes, you're in a podium position, you're quite happy there, you've got no one really around you, and then if someone appears on your ear bumper, you know, determined to try and find a way through, you're equally determined to make sure that they don't steal that podium place off you.
Or you just start praying for the checkered flag.
Yes, it can't be soon enough sometimes.
No doubt he would have already said on his radio, how long left to the engineers? Because you just, if you know that someone's catching you and you're literally doing everything you can, then you just want the race to be over. I just noticed a couple of laps ago, the number 43, the lead BMW GT4 car, did their, and the last lap actually, they've gone even quicker. They're in the 12s in that car, Jack Mitchell. So he's absolutely flying and seems to be pulling away from Jordan Albert in the 570 GT4 McLaren, who's doing a very solid job still. The gap from Albert to Tuck to the other BMW seems to be staying pretty consistent. If anything, Jordan's just pulling away from Ben Tuck a little bit. So those 3 are spreading out, but Jack Mitchell in the lead BMW in the lead GT4 class is doing his fastest laps of the race at the moment.
Yeah, we've had 5 different winners in GT4 with each race thus far this year. I'm just looking to check. We have not had, yes, we have had a BMW victory, and it was the 42 car before. So as we stand at the moment, we could be having our first repeat winners in both classes, because the number 11 Aston Martin of TF Sport has won 1 race in the GT3 class, and the 42 Century Motorsport car, number 42 being driven for this final stint by Jack Mitchell, has also won 1 race so far this year. They won the 2nd race at Snetterton. It was the 1st race at Snetterton that was won by the TF Sport Aston Martin in GT3, so back-to-back victories as well, more or less. But all the more impressive for the 42 BMW in GT4, considering that it had a 20-second pit stop success penalty, and it still has come out in the mix there in 4th place. So it's so I beg your pardon, I'm talking utter rubbish, not for the first time. It's the other BMW that's leading now, so 43 would become a first-time winner, 6th different winner in 6 races in GT4. I'll pretend I never tried to make that point, and let's concentrate instead on the 2nd place battle in GT3, because Johnny Adam is only 1.2 seconds behind Phil Keane now, and has really started to close in on the Lamborghini. And on previous lap, well, he was 2/100ths of a second quicker, nothing in it really, but once you start getting a little bit closer, you know, the carrot starts dangling a little bit closer in front of you, and And what sort of slipstream effect will you start getting? How close do you have to get in a GT3 car to start really feeling the aerodynamic benefits of a slipstream?
I actually was just about to make that point. Looking at the screen here, he's Johnny Adams just gone purple through the second sector speed trap. So that's the fastest speed trap through the second sector overall of the whole race, and that will be the tow he's now getting from Phil Keen's Lamborghini. Johnny's also done his best third sector of the race with the tow down the straight towards Brooklands there. So you'll really be starting to get an effect now, especially, you know, GT car, they have a lot of downforce, a lot of aero, but they also make a big hole in the air as well. So when you get tucked in behind one of those, you really see, as we saw on the onboard before the start of the race, just how much difference a tow makes, especially around a fast circuit like Silverstone.
Yeah, and there are lots of long straights where you can really reap the rewards of that, and it's no surprise, therefore, that Johnny Adams just did his personal best lap, and he gets his first sub-2 minute lap as well for quite some time. Half a second is all that separates these two now. Now, if Johnny Adams could find a way through fairly quickly, could he close in on Nicky Team? Nicky is 5.5 seconds up the road. On the previous lap, Johnny was only 0.4 quicker though, and that was with the benefit of a slipstream, so in a way, Johnny can kind of take his time over this. There's not much chance of him catching Nicky Team at this rate, so focus all of your attentions on making a good, clean move on Phil Keen, because one thing we do know is that Phil won't make it easy for him, and it's one thing, if you're catching another car by a second or so a lap, then you can anticipate you should be able to find a way through fairly easily, but when it's a case of a tenth here and there, that's a much harder overtake to make stick.
Yeah, and it's something, especially on a track like this where it's a really fast-flowing circuit, it's something you really have to plan in advance. So Johnny will be looking at Phil now and he'll be working out where's Phil strong, where's Phil a little bit weaker, and from there he'll be planning a move. You don't just sort of turn up and, you know, it's not a sort of a hit and hope. It's not just, oh look, you know, Phil's not going to suddenly make a big mistake, or he shouldn't do anyway. You know, Phil's very consistent. He's a solid driver. So Johnny's really going to have to plan. And it actually looks so he's got a good run down here, and now the slipstream will really be kicking in as well. But still, Phil, he knows that Phil's super late on the brakes. Phil's not going to be sort of put under pressure and pressurised into braking early or braking too late or anything like that. So Johnny's really going to have to think about where he can pass Phil over the next couple of laps.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about earlier on the benefits of mid-engined and front-engine cars and how the mid-engine Lamborghinis do seem very good on the brakes. So it's going to be difficult to outbrake the Lamborghini. Maybe it's going to be more about getting the traction out of the corner, but a bit of back marker traffic there to deal with. One of the Academy Motorsport Aston Martins in GT4. There's Nicky Team, 5.2 seconds to the good, 2 minutes 0.6 last time round. Was still the quickest man on the track, with the exception of Marco Sorensen, who's running down in 6th position. There's our 42 BMW that's running now 3rd within GT4, of course, with the 144 car having made its final pit stop. And we've had another drive-through penalty, by the way, for the 88 car, which is the Team Hard with Trade Rice cars machine. The Alex Reid and Ben Wallace car has been handed another stop-go penalty. That's not its first. In fact, it might not even be its second. It's had 6 pit stops, or will have done by the time it completes that penalty, in fact, which it's doing now. So it's only supposed to have been in 3 times, so I think it's had at least 2 pit lane penalties, maybe even 3. Johnny Adam then trying to use the traffic maybe, and of course this is where the traffic really does come into play, because when you've got 2 drivers as evenly matched as these 2 are, 2 cars as evenly matched as these 2 are, it's hard to make the move happen. You maybe need some outside forces to come in and sort of maybe prise the door open for you. If, for example, Phil Keen catches a back marker an awkward position, and this is one of those awkward positions. Look at the momentum he loses there by catching the number 5 McLaren, I think that is, through the apex there at the slowest corner on the circuit, but then it works both ways, doesn't it? If Johnny Adam catches it at the next corner, it didn't exactly leap out of his way, and so the status quo is maintained.
Yeah, and you can't expect, that's Jordan Albert there in the McLaren, you can't expect him to just leap out of the way either. You know, he's running his own race, he's under pressure from the car behind Ben Tuck in the BMW, who's putting in some good lap times at the moment to try and chase him down. So you can't expect Jordan to just give away a few seconds letting these guys through. So it's all about sort of all of you have got to be mature and manage the situation properly. And that's what we're saying. It's amazing how well the AMs are driving as well in these situations, because they're not easy, especially on a quick circuit. managing the traffic and everything is really difficult, and it's an important part of endurance and GT racing generally.
Yeah, and it's something that we saw a little bit of earlier on when we were in amongst pit stops, and AM drivers were in the process of handing over to the pro drivers, and for a while we had a mix of the two out on track. And when you're in a GT3 car, you're not accustomed to having to look in the mirror that much for quicker cars coming up behind you, but then all of a sudden a pro driver appears like a bat out of hell behind, and you really have to deal with that very well, and they all have predominantly throughout the course of this race. So 12.5 minutes to go. Where's the last hour gone? We are already approaching the final innings in what has been a thrilling 3 hours of racing here at Silverstone. Nicky Team is looking good. He and Mark Farmer looking good to take the RAC trophy, but this is long distance endurance racing. You never count any chickens until you have seen that checkered flag and got your car back into Parc Fermé post-race, because there's always something that can go wrong. Something could break on the car, you could have contact with the back mark, you could run out of fuel or something. That's rare that would happen with teams of this level of expertise, but it can happen if there's been a slight miscalculation. We saw there were issues with refuelling for the Barwell squad earlier on. What if they miscalculated it? What if they didn't quite get enough in to get to the end of the race? So you can't switch off just because we're at the end of the race and Nicky Team's got a 6-second lead, because anything can happen, and very often does. Marco Sorensen still has the fastest lap in the race, 1:59.725, which was a very, very quick lap time. As we said before, that was right down on qualifying pace that we saw yesterday. And we've still got, I think I'm right in saying, 10 of our GT3 cars on the lead lap. Jelmer Berman, no, 9 of them. Jelmer Berman has got a lap down, so we've got everyone from Nicky Team in the lead, down to Darren Turner in 9th place on the lead lap, which is pretty impressive this long into a race. And of course we haven't had a single safety car period all race long. We've been able to deal with most of our on-track incidents with the use of the yellow flags and the live snatch vehicles, and of course the ever hard-working British Marshals. There's the gap then, 5.8, so it did come down slightly that time by a few tenths, but Phil Keane being spurred on by Johnny Adam, who is latched onto the tail of the Lamborghini, just can't find a way through. There's a bit of a group of back markers coming up in front though, which may play into his hands. There is the BMW, which is the number 43 car that is leading its class. Jack Mitchell, 17.3 seconds clear of Jordan Albert in second place, who's 7.5 seconds ahead of Ben Tuck in the other BMW. Matt Nicol-Jones, though, who are following that battle, he's now only 1.2 seconds behind, so third place in GT4 could very much still change before the end of the race. There is the second place car, Jordan Albert, some 17.3 seconds back, but as we've said, that car's been there or thereabouts all race long, and it's been a really, really positive run for the Tolman Motorsports squad. The number 4 car, of course, out early on after contact, but the number 5 car running strong. Here's the fight for third. Well, it's not quite a fight yet, but it's a fight that's developing. Matt Nicol-Jones is definitely closing in by a tenth or so every lap. But then again, he's got that same situation that we're seeing in GT3 with Johnny Adam and Phil Keane. Just because he's catching by a tenth or so a lap doesn't mean that he's going to then breeze past the BMW when he does eventually get there. And so Ben Tuck, he'll be hoping will only have to defend for a couple of laps, if that, and so it is still looking pretty good for the Century Motorsport BMW squad. Matt Nicol-Jones fourth, Patrick Mathieson, the only Ginetta inside the top 5, and well, if you flash back a year or so ago into GT4 racing, it was rare that we didn't have a Ginetta on the top step of the podium, and all of a sudden the other manufacturers, the Aston Martins, the McLarens, and most late the BMWs, really are, they've not just closed the gap to the Ginettas. If anything, they've overtaken them, and they really do look like the strongest cars out there.
Yeah, it's amazing how close the racing can be when you look at these. They're not a million miles away from road cars, GT4 cars. You know, they're modified road cars, and yet we've got a McLaren racing a BMW M4. You know, as road cars, they're a long way apart. So it's amazing. You know, the McLaren has to be wound down to about 430 horsepower. But imagine being given that task. Right, there's your McLaren, there's your BMW. Now make them create a fair race between those two manufacturers. It's amazing that we've ended up with this sort of mix of cars, and it's so close as well. And we've still got, you know, our screens lit up with green sectors and green lap times everywhere. You've got Callum McLeod's just done his fastest lap of the race at 59.8. That's only a tenth of a second off the fastest overall by Marco Sorensen. So just shows, as I was saying earlier, about reliability and strength, the endurance of these cars. you can literally push them like you're doing qualifying for 3 hours or even 24 hours. You know, you just come in, put some fuel and tyres on it and send it out again and push as hard as you can for another hour. So.
No, absolutely. So how standard are GT4 cars and how close to a road car are they? I suppose the McLaren is the best reference point for you. That's the car that maybe you're the most familiar with. So how close to a road-going 570S is the GT4 model?
So has the same chassis, the same suspension geometry. We're allowed to change the springs and dampers to racing springs and dampers, which are obviously adjustable. It's got a couple of aero parts on it, which have to be homologated with the car, and once they're homologated, you can't adjust those. All you can do is adjust the angle of the rear wing. And then it's got the same engine, so it's got the 3.8 litre twin turbo V8 road car engine out of the McLaren 570S road car. That engine, which has 562 horsepower in a road car, is wound down to about 430 for the BOP. It's got the same gearbox, it's got the same road car ECU and everything. So it's you know, it's difficult. These cars are operating at much higher temperatures than a road car would, and they're being pushed much harder. So it's a massive challenge for the manufacturers to then adapt them into race cars. And it looks there, the Lamborghini was getting pretty close to the back of that Aston GT4 car there, wasn't it? So exactly what we were saying earlier about picking your way through traffic. But yes, so there's not a massive amount of modification you're allowed to do from a road car to a GT4 car. And then obviously once you've done all your modifications, you created the GT4 car, which you've then got homologated, you then get given your balanced performance. So that's a power restriction, a minimum weight, and we've got a car off track here.
And I fear it's the 61 Aston Martin of Jan Young. Now that is a fairly expensive problem, I can say that for sure. Halfway down the Hanger Straight, and I think it's 61. I hope in a way it's not 62, because that was the car that was really closing in for third place in the class. I think it is the 61 car that's no, it's not, it's the 62. That is the 60 no, calm down, 61 it is, 61, Jan Young, there we go. I saw the other Aston Martin further back, and of course 62 is ahead of 61 in the race, but they're a lap apart. So yeah, 61 it is, Jan Young, who has pulled off going down the Hanger Straight, and that is a real shame. They were running 6th in class, and well, they're not anymore. That's fairly terminal, and yet Jan gets out of the car. Don't blame him, that car is going absolutely nowhere. Now let's hope that hasn't left any fluid on the track. I haven't seen anyone skating around scrabbling for grip, so hopefully we've got away with that. Check back with our leaders. Nicky Team 6.7 seconds ahead of Phil Keane. Johnny Adam is, well, he's almost a second behind Phil now, so just doesn't seem quite able to challenge for the time being. The 69 Lamborghini goes through there, and yeah, that is running down in 7th position. Here is the fight for 3rd in GT4. So Ben Tuck and Matt Nicol-Jones battle is now joined. 5 minutes to go, and the Aston Martin all over him. The McLaren's in there as well, though. Rod Bell, that's the GT3 car. Is there a gap up the inside for Matt Nicol-Jones? I think there might be. They're going to run side by side down the Wellington Straight here, and Rod Bell gets as far away from them as he possibly could. He was taking no chances there after the issues that that car had back at Rockingham. Oh, but the move is not made to tick, and I think that the Century Motorsport squad and Ben Tuck's family and friends there fairly happy with that situation. But Matt Nicol-Jones definitely looks a little bit quicker at this stage of the race. Can he find a way through though? BMW ahead of Aston Martin, a car length in it as they come across the start-finish line with 4.25 minutes to go. How far ahead of Patrick Matthiessen are they? They're only 1.6 seconds ahead of Matthiessen, so the Ginetta there, you just caught a glimpse of it in the background. On the previous lap, Patrick was 1.5 seconds quicker than them, so if these two start falling over each other, forget about getting two BMWs on the podium or getting an Aston Martin on the podium. We could have a Ginetta podium, and that would be a really big story in a race where the Ginettas really haven't seemed to have the pace this weekend. So this could all still change. There is Matthiessen, and he is wringing the neck of the HHC car that started the race down on the 7th row of the grid. 14th in GT4 in qualifying was the 55 car, and now there it is running in 5th position, but closing on the 3rd and 4th place cars. Back out of Stowe they go. Nicol-Jones really will be getting the hurry up then. He will want to get this move made as quickly as possible. There might be a gap on the inside into into Vale, but those BMWs do seem fairly strong on the brakes. Yelmer Berman about to come through and lap this pair as well. As Nickel Jones has got to run at the inside in towards the second part of Club. No, the door is closed in his face again. But what was the cost of that? Because it means Ben Tuck runs out very, very wide. That will certainly be a strike for exceeding the track limits. Let's hope he's not on his final warning. He's having none of it, not letting Yelmer Berman through. Turns straight into the corner, carries the optimum speed through the turn. Yelmer won't like that, but you can see why he did it. He didn't want to run out wide and get dirt on his tyres again. Into the braking zone, it's all getting very congested. Round the outside goes Matt Nickel Jones, gives him the inside line for the next left-hander. This could get very close indeed if Ben Tuck tries to turn in. He can't do it though, and Matt Nickel Jones goes through. Third place now belongs to Academy Motorsport. Well, Century aren't too pleased with that, but Ben might fight back yet. He's in the tow. They've got another back marker in front, which I think might be the 144 car. Yes, it is. About to go a lap down, and Ben Tuck will try and get back up the inside down towards Brooklyn. Nickel Jones is very late on the brakes. He's too late on the brakes. He runs out wide though. Tuck back up the inside. There's contact between the two. The Aston Martin sideways over the curb. Where's Matisse in all of this? He must be too far back in the blue and white Ginetta. He's right there with them. So this is fabulous stuff for a podium position, and still only 3 cars in it.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's so tense, and you know, we were talking about teammates earlier, and Ben Tuck's teammate Ben Green, I can imagine what Ben and his father Howard are like in the garage at the moment, because this is, you know, that is the worst position, the hardest position to be in, is when you're not even in the car. And you know, Ben Tuck at the moment is doing a really good job here of staying on the back of him and on the back of Nickel Jones, and I'm pretty certain he'll have another go. But now we've got Ginetta involved as well. I wouldn't want to put money on who's going to win out of these 3, who's going to get this last podium spot.
No, but, I really hope that they do all make it to the finish. That's my only concern, because when the tempers start to rise and there's so much on the line here, drivers are willing to take extra risks at this stage of the race. We're on to the final lap, by the way. The GT3 leaders have just gone through onto their final lap. This lot still are half a lap further back though, so they get another lap and a half out of this one to decide this third place battle. Matisse up the inside of Tuck, almost into the back of the BMW. Sharp intakes of breath all round there as Matisse is nibbling away at the rear bumper of the 42 car. This, though, is relieving some of the pressure, quite a lot of the pressure actually, from Matt Nickel Jones in front. Tuck had, as you said, Ollie, been staying right with him. All of a sudden, though, now he's having to start defending. We can see in a straight line, the BMW just sails off into the distance, but through the corners, the little Ginetta is maybe a little bit quicker. Up towards Village they go once again for what is the penultimate time for these 3 cars. You can see the braking capabilities of the Ginetta there as he tries to go around the outside, and this is exactly what Nickel Jones did a lap ago, and that was Patrick Matisse, and I think studying what had happened a lap earlier, realising that maybe the BMW was struggling through that part of the circuit. He takes 4th place away. Has he got time to catch Nickel Jones and challenge for 3rd? Can he keep that rapid BMW at bay there? Because the BMW, we know, is good in a straight line. Ben Tuck weaves from the outside to the inside, back to the outside line again, wheel to wheel into the braking zone, and Matisse hangs on just about. Can he get the car stopped? I think he can. Yes, there he is. He comes out on the other side of the corner, but then runs wide again. Oh, Patrick, they're both on the ragged edge here, both making mistakes, both locking up and running wide from time to time. But what do you expect at this stage of the race? I think they might have done it for Ben, though. He's now got a bit too far back to challenge, and the team back in the garage watch on anxiously though, because of course their other car is still leading the race. Leading the race overall though is Nicky Team, and TF Sport are about to become the first 2-time winners in the British GT Championship in GT3. They win the RAC trophy here at the Silverstone 500, and what a performance it was from both of them. Mark Farmer and Nicky Team take the checkered flag by 3.5 seconds after 3 hours of pure unadulterated racing. Not a single safety car intervention in sight, and that is a genuine gap between them. Phil Keane in 2nd, Johnny Adam came home 3rd, and Seb Morris and Rick Parford in the Team Park Racing Bentley, their best result of the season so far for that team, and it comes at one of the most challenging weekends for them, with Ryan Ratcliffe falling ill overnight with food poisoning, not able to race. They drag Seb Morris down at literally the last second, get him in the car, and they finish 4th. Stuart Moore brings the Nissan home in 5th. But what's going to happen in GT4? It looks as though Jack Mitchell and Jordan Albert are settled in P1 and 2, but Matisse, you know, he has caught Matt Nickel Jones here, hasn't he? He's in the slipstream. Now the Ginetta is not quite as quick in a straight line as the BMW, but compared to the Aston Martin, they seem a bit more evenly matched. So what can he do? Less than half a lap to go. There is our class leader though in GT4, and it is Jack Mitchell in the number 43 Century Motorsport BMW that he shares with Alexander Sherpen, who we saw in the garage watching anxiously on a moment or two ago. And our GT4 leaders are about to become our GT4 winners as the BMW comes out across the start-finish line, and it is a 6th different winner in GT4 in 6 races. That team have won already this year, but not with the 43 car. Jelmer Berman comes through there in the GT3 Mercedes. Marco Sorensen incidentally came home 6th overall in GT3. Here comes the GT4 battle for 3rd place though. What is going to happen? Jordan Albert's going to be 2nd. Who is going to be on the bottom step of the podium though? Patrick Matisse is all over him. He's on the inside of Nicol Jones. There's a bit of contact, isn't there, between the two of them? Nicol Jones slides out wide, and Matisse has done it. Patrick Matisse goes from 5th to 3rd in the last 2 laps. A phenomenal drive from the HHC Motorsport squad, and they do it. A podium finish for Ginetta when all seemed lost at the start of the weekend. The Ginettas have not had the speed this weekend that they would traditionally have expected, and they somehow managed to salvage a podium out of it on the very last corner. Wow. I mean, Matt Nicol-Jones, Ollie, I'm sure won't be best pleased about that, but you can't hold that against Patrick Matisse, and he had a sniff of a podium, and my word, he took it.
Yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it? I mean, it was one of those, you kind of got to have a go. Like, yeah. You know, he would have got so much grief if he just sat there and followed him around for the whole of the last lap. Whether it was a bit too aggressive, we're just about to see again on the replay here.
Gap was there.
There was a gap. Was it a car-sized gap? I'm not sure, but that's up for interpretation, really. I don't know. It was aggressive. He had to have a go. It's the last corner of the race. An amazing drive anyway from Matisse, wasn't it? Didn't put a foot wrong, especially for the last few laps. He drove really, really well. Jelmer Berman in the Mercedes, when he was lapping them, he could have got involved, and to be fair, he gave those guys room. He knew that they were racing as well, and let them go ahead and race. And it was really exciting last couple of laps of the GT4, and a 6th winner for GT4. How good is that? 6 winners in 6 races. You can't complain that anyone's got an advantage, really, can you?
No, well, I mean, the GT4 Championship was separated by half a point between the top 2 coming into this race, and I doubt it's much more than that now after that one. In GT3, Nicky Team takes the race victory, though, with Mark Farmer by 3.5 seconds over John Minshaw and Phil Keane in 2nd place. Vic Haig and Johnny Adam get themselves back on the podium. That is going to be their first podium visit since they won back at Alton Park. Seb Morris and Rick Parfitt are 4th, ahead of Ricardo Sanchez and Struan Moore. Derek Johnston and Marco Sorensen 6th, ahead of Sam Dehan and Johnny Cocker. Sean Bolf and Rob Bell. Adam Howard and Darren Turner. There we go. 9th place with Lee Mole and Jelmer Berman 10th. 11th place then for the Brown and Manderson, Aston Martin, Ian Logging, Callum McLeod 12th, with Davidson and Martin rounding out the GT3 runners. Alexander Sherpen and Ben Mitchell win in GT4 ahead of Lewis Proctor and Jordan Albert. Callum Poynton and Patrick Matisse sensationally 3rd place after a last corner overtake. Then it is Moore and Nicol-Jones 17th, Greenan took 18th. Calvin Fletcher and Martin Plowman fight back from a drive-through penalty for 19th overall, and George and Holder in 20th place there. Then it's Mike Newbold and Will Burns, Callum Hawkins-Rowe and Jordan Stilt next in line, and then we start hitting a few of the cars that hit trouble. Richard Neary and Adam Christodoulou, of course, down there in the GT3 Mercedes, who were looking strong for a podium, didn't reach the finish. So a dramatic 3 hours of racing across both classes, and there is Mark Farmer wandering his way up the pit lane towards the podium area, which is being dressed and readied ahead of what I think will be a fairly excitable set of podium celebrations up there for both GT3 and GT4. Nicky Team with the victory with Mark Farmer, as I said. That's their 2nd win in as many meetings, and they're starting to creep their way up the championship table now as well. well. Second place, of course, for the John Mitchell and Phil Keane car. Well, they were only 4.5 points behind the championship leaders coming into that race, and the championship leaders being Lee Mole and Jelmer Berman. They finished way down the order, so I reckon that the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini will have taken the championship lead as a result of that second place finish. Third place for Flick Haig and Johnny Adam, and as I said, that was their first podium visit since they won back at Alton Park at the start of the year. Well, down in amongst all of the emotion and excitement underneath the podium is Andy J. Andy, who have you got for us?
Well, I've got Mark Farmer, obviously probably the happiest man at Silverstone right now.
Very happy, very, very happy. Yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was really hard. We had a 10-second success penalty that we had to overcome, and
come on, Nicky come in here as well. Yes.
And then and then we had a very unfortunate shunt that really I thought was going to put us out of the running, but this man drove like a hero, and the team in the pit stops were just absolutely flawless. They just nailed it. And I mean, what a thing to overcome that kind of adversity and get there. Absolutely chuffed to bits. Awesome.
And Nicky, I think it's fair to say Mark described you as driving like a hero, driving like a world champion.
Yeah, maybe it's going to be a world champion in the future. We got a big talent right here. No, great day. Great to win this race. Biggest one of the calendar. So on home ground for Aston Martin too in the team. So it's just unbelievable, even with the penalty, to go there and do it. It was a tough one, especially with the tyres. Struggled so much in the end, but yeah, I could see Johnny kept the Lambo busy, so it was good.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Congratulations, guys. And of course, you get the RAC trophy as well, which is another special moment, isn't it?
I better join them, hadn't I?
Yeah. It's essential now, isn't it? Well done, guys. Enjoy it. Right, listen, I'm going to try and find the GT4 winners, so give me a couple of minutes, people. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, no worries, Andy. It's very busy down there, isn't it? Underneath the podium, but you've had some experience, Ollie, of pulling in underneath the podium as a race winner or a podium finisher, and it must feel so good to climb out of the car and see all of those happy faces around. We'll get your thoughts on that in a moment, though, because I believe that Andy may well have found who he was looking for down in the pits.
I certainly have, yeah, two absolutely thrilled gentlemen here. I mean, you both also look completely shattered. How do you feel?
No, it's great. The car felt good all day, and Century did a brilliant job. The BMW were flying out there. Jack did a very good last stint, so well, we're happy.
Talk about a grandstand finish. Have you sort of even computed what happened in those last few laps?
Not really, no. At the start I didn't really know what was going on. I just got told to do fastest lap, treat it like qualifying, put fastest laps in and kind of see where we finished, but I didn't know we had the lead, so no, really pleased with that, and a bit unexpected, but we knew we had the pace, especially our race pace as well, so we just kept chipping away at it, as Alex done. Alex done a really good job as well this weekend, so really pleased with the team, and it's really good. They get the result they deserved, really.
How does it feel to be in a 3-hour race, and then probably you must have spent, I don't know, the entire time for the last 5 minutes just staring in your mirrors going, nope, nope, nope?
It wasn't too bad, yeah. It's always hard, and especially in British GT as well, the level of competition is pretty tricky, so I'm really pleased with that win, and it's definitely my first one as well, so yeah, one to remember for sure.
Congratulations, guys. Go and enjoy it on the podium as well. Well done. Thank you very much. Perfect. Well, listen, you know, it goes without saying there's a lot of absolutely delighted people. Obviously, the winners are always happiest, but so many of the teams, you just know what it means. Because it's an endurance race, because it's exhausting, because there's strategy and tactics and everything else comes into play. And of course, Lady Luck has had her role to play in this race as well, hasn't she? But it just... there's this kind of adrenaline dump happening now with the drivers, and there's such great camaraderie within these teams that are always echoed. We see it every race and every round in British GT. They're a supportive family, and the guys up there, they're thrilled for each other as well. But my word, there are going to be some exhausted people today as well. I think we should see what happens on the podium, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, that, Andy. It's going to be a rather exciting one, as I said earlier on, and the drivers waiting around behind the podium, waiting to be shown to the assembled crowd below, and a sizable crowd it is too. Now I think we're going to get the GT3 top three up first. So Flick Haig and Johnny Adam are third place finishers, excuse me, in GT3, and a brilliant drive it was for the Optimum Motorsport squad. Phil Keane and John Minshaw as well make their way onto the second step, and they take the championship lead by my reckoning with that one. Handshakes all round with Flick and Johnny, but the race winners for the second time in as many meetings our Nicky team and Mark Farmer, and yeah, Mark's pretty happy with that. Nicky also fairly happy with that. Nicky, a very flamboyant character, isn't he? He's a great character to have on board in British GT. One of those 5 factory Aston Martin drivers that have been brought into the championship this year to assist the effort, and they make their way to the stop step of the podium. And they finally get the chance to wipe the sweat from their eyes, to catch their breath, and to receive their trophies. And this is the big one, of course, because the main trophy for the race winners, the RAC trophy, and that is a really special thing, as we've said earlier on. History stretching right back into the 1930s, and there it is itself. And Mark and Nicky hold it aloft. They are the winners of the Silverstone 500, and that is the moment that has made all of the effort and all of the hard work worthwhile. John Minshaw and Phil Keane get, I think that's the fastest lap award, isn't it, that they've just been given. And now we get ready for the real fun to begin, because the champagne corks are about to be popped. And there are 6 bottles up there. The crowd down below, if they're starting to sweat or feel a bit warm in the sun, they're about to get cooled down a little bit, I think. And so the crowd below are about to get showered, I think, by the 6 bottles of champagne. There they go. Well, maybe not, because they're more interested in focusing on each other. That is an awful lot of champagne, and that stuff stings when it goes in your eyes as well, but they won't care. It's a chance to blow off some steam at the end of what's been a very, very hard weekend of racing. It's not just about the 3-hour race, of course. They've had practice sessions, qualifying sessions. The old qualifying format for British GT is quite complicated, where you take a cumulative time of both the pro and the AM driver, and that means that qualifying, there's an awful lot of thought has to go into it. It's a full team effort, though, working out the strategy for qualifying, the strategy for the race as well. And the TF Sport squad judged that to perfection, and it all came down really to that final pit stop, where had that last pit stop been half a second slower, or had they been half a second further back when they came in, they would not have gone out in front of the Barwell Lamborghini. And then we know the pace that Nicky team had, but would he have been able to find a way past Phil Keane? Well, that's questionable. So we'll never know, though, because they did get the pit stop right, they did get the in-lap right, and they did manage to get out in front, and from there, they were never headed. Look at the size of the crowd down there in the pit lane, stretching up onto the pit wall as well. A crowd of very happy people. Most of them will be with the teams or the drivers that have finished on the podium. VIPs, maybe some sponsors as well. It's always important, you know, we talk about sponsorship an awful lot in racing, but a big part of that is inviting your sponsors down to the races to see where their money is going, and you get an awful lot of sponsors crowding around the pit garages watching the racing, and they get to share in the joy as well when it all ends well. Well, there we go then. We have our GT4 podium now starting to get underway, and this is the silver, sorry, it's the Pro-Am cars, aren't they? No, right, first time, Silver Cup cars. Ollie was about to dive in and correct me then. These are the Silver Cup GT4 drivers making their way up. Alexander Sherpen, though, of course, alongside Jack Mitchell, the overall GT4 winners too, and they had a pretty flawless run. They'd been in the hunt for a podium all race long, and then all of a sudden, after that final set of pit stops, they found themselves right at the front. And there is Kelvin Fletcher making his way up as well, alongside Martin Plowman. And they bounce back to get a half-decent result, actually, after that drive-through penalty that they had. And lucky, actually, to get away with not damaging the car after the contact that they had with Charlie Fagg in his Tolman Motorsport McLaren. At least Tolman get one car on the podium, second place overall in GT4 for Tolman Motorsport. And yeah, that was a pretty intense fight at the end of GT4. And with third place changing hands at the very last corner, you can't really get much more exciting than that. So very happy drivers up on the podium. We can take a look back at some of the highlights of what was a thrilling 3-hour race. Well, it was the Nissan, the RJN Nissan, that got its way to the front from pole position of Ricardo Sanchez at the start of the race, and he led the field through Copse Corner for the first time. Whilst further back, there was lots of jostling with some quick cars starting out of position. It was the number 11 car, Mark Farmer, that was second ahead of Ian Loggy initially, but then Farmer had contact from the 47 Aston Martin a bit later on, spinning him seemingly out of contention. There was the Charlie Fagg and Kelvin Fletcher contact that put Fagg out of the race. Fletcher was able to continue but was given a subsequent penalty. The 77 Mercedes was in the gravel as well, as Ricardo Sanchez brought the Nissan in to kick-start the first round of pit stops. The pro drivers jumped into the cars and the lap times started to tumble as a rhythm was starting to be set. Struan Moore, though, was in all sorts of stripes, seemed to be losing plenty of places left, right and centre, only to be discovered that he couldn't reach his pedals. The seat had moved too far back. There was a spin for Johnny Cocker in the Lamborghini as well, further back, as Mark Farmer watched on with interest as the next round of pit stops began, and all of a sudden the strategy started to take on extra importance. Flick Haig dived up the inside as well and made some nice moves. Stick to make her way towards the front. That was the final pit stop, though, that won it for Nicky Team. They were able to hang on to the race victory. Well, thank you very much for joining us this weekend at Silverstone. My thanks as well to Ollie Milroy for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed yourself up here, talking us through the race.
Yeah, it's been brilliant, and what a race as well. So thank you for having me in the commentary box. Really exciting afternoon of racing. So
more than welcome. We hope to have you back again very shortly. Thank you very much for joining us here at Silverstone. Hope you'll join us for our next live stream racing at Brands Hatch.